distance of more than 200 kilometres. 208 k's with the big journey from the French village of Moron-en-Montagne through to the Swiss capital of Bern. Although it's a stage that is designated to be one for the sprinters, it's anything but flat. There's only one Category 4 climb towards the end, but the last 5 kilometres are tricky, and it includes a couple of cobbled sections. A minute's silence was paid by all those of us working on the Tour de France today to mark the 3 days of mourning and the 3 days of respect following the tragedy in Nice, where we saw those awful attacks and more than 80 people losing their lives. The race goes on as it has done ever since, and the Tour de France making a statement that our lifestyles will not be impeded. Christian Prudhomme continues to wear the black armband, the flag coming in to get racing started. Not surprisingly, the IM cycling team, a Swiss outfit trying to get things rolling. But the two men who are off the front, Tony Martin, along with Julien Alaphilippe, both of them from edX Quickstep. An incredibly fast first hour. The two of them off the front, they covered 49.5 kilometres within the first hour of racing. Stage heading to Bern today, the Swiss capital. Stages of the Tour de Suisse have been held here quite regularly in the last 10 years, and Tony Martin has finished in second place on a stage here. That was an individual time trial when he was beaten by Fabian Cancellara. These are the chasers, looking to see whether they can bridge the gap. This is Breen at the back of the group for the Fortunato Vital Concept team. Lawson Craddock for the Canal Drapac squad. Good to see him in the break, Lawson Craddock. He's had a tough tour as a result of the crashes that he's been involved in. So Timo Ruzen in the yellow colours of Lotto NL Jumbo. The first time we've seen the Dutchman off the front. The main rider in the breakaway so far for Lotto NL Jumbo has been the Kiwi, George Bennett, who once again was in the breakaway yesterday. No threats up the road in terms of the race for the general classification. Of the two leaders, Alaphilippe and Tony Martin, Alaphilippe is the best placed overall, 40th position at 1 hour, 7 minutes and 50 seconds behind. Still in the department of the Jura, where they raced through yesterday and there was lots of climbing. Second on the stage yesterday for Rafael Majka. But he has moved back into the lead of the race for the King of the Mountains jersey. Matej Bodnar is the rider that he is alongside. It's a 37-point advantage in the race for that jersey for Rafael Majka, ahead of Thomas de Gent. In third position is the Spanish climber Dani Navarro. And Navarro was in the break yesterday. So too was this man. This is Alberto Lasada now, who's on the front for Katusha. They have one of the favourites for the stage today, and that is Alexander Kristoff. Kristoff was second on the stage a couple of days ago, the sprint finish to the Parc d'Oiseau, which was the fourth win for Mark Cavendish. And no chasing just as yet from Dimension Data on Mandela Day. And I think towards the back end of the stage, we'll see the Dimension Data team come to the front, and I expect today to be more a chance for Edvald Bosenhagen perhaps than Mark Cavendish. We'll see. But never underestimate Mark Cavendish. It's a tricky sort of a finish. Not too far away from departing this French soil and across the border into Switzerland. But we are being welcomed. Slightly ahead of schedule at the moment. Still 146 kilometres to go, but it has been an incredibly fast start to the stage. So as we take a look at the Chateau de Joux, which is the castle of the Cheek, was firstly built of wood, and that was then rebuilt in the 12th century with a big border fortress around the outside. For a little while it served as a state prison, then as an artillery fort, and it was occupied by the military from the latter part of the 11th century, when it was firstly built of wood and then later on in stone, up until 1940. And you can still see plenty of the architecture reflecting that it was a military fort. They've now got a weapons museum within this beautiful old chateau, and perched nicely on the top of the hill so they can see any advancing troops coming up through the valley.
Of photos, that was so very close.
That'll be the third one that's had to go to the photo in this amazing Tour de France for the sprinters after a climb like that.
Well, there was no fairy tale ending for Fabian Cancellara, but what a dramatic... I mean, Phil, look at the damage a 1.5 kilometre climb towards the end has done.
There's a few seconds lost for some of the overall leaders in the Tour de France on this running.
There's Navadauskas just crossing the line.
And prepare for his next big objective for the season, and perhaps his biggest. He's aiming for Olympic Games gold medal on the track in the Omnium at the Games in Rio. When the flag came in to get racing started, it was a very aggressive start. In fact, across the first hour, they covered 51.8 kilometres. That's the fastest we've seen throughout this year's tour. Second fastest was just before the rest day, and that was on the stage where we saw Tony Martin and Julien Alaphilippe right off the front and covered 49.5 kilometres in the first hour. But if you can remember just from moments ago, the course profile for today, it was a tough start, and they averaged almost 52 kilometres per hour. Strong breakaway group up the road. This is Greg van Avermaet amongst the chasers trying to get across. He's got Alexei Lutsenko sitting behind him from Astana, followed then by Thomas Vaucluse. "91 kilometres to go, the leaders with an advantage of almost 8 minutes. They've been over one climb already, and it's a Category 3 climb, and it was Rafael Majka managing to collect the points, as he is in the leading group along with Peter Sagan in the green jersey. So Rafael Majka once again making it into the breakaway, looking to go one better than he did a few days ago, and that was into Toulouse when he was in second position behind Jalinson Pantano. This is Ilnaz Zakarin at the back of the leading group as we now join them. And Pantano is also in this group for IM Cycling. So too is his teammate Steph Clement. Tony Galopin is the rider in the red colours from Lotto Soudal. Domenico Pozzovivo is there for AG Tour Le Mondial. The tall rider in the black colours of Fortunato Vital Concept, that is Brice Feillu. And this is Rafael Majka, the leader of the King of the Mountains classification, being towed up this climb by the leader of the points classification. They are well ahead of schedule. This is a reasonably long climb at 6.4 kilometres. A little bit longer than that. 6.4 it is. The Col de Moses that they're now making their way up. This is Durasec from Lamprey. Steph Clement knows the roads around here well. He has been a winner of a race here some 10 years ago. This is Jalinson Pantano, who reminded us after his stage victory, which was on stage 15, that there are more Colombian climbers than just Nairo Quintana and Esteban Chavez. They certainly are, and he is one of them. And he has been climbing well. What a race it's been. What a few months it's been for IM Cycling. Since they announced that the team wouldn't be continuing, they've now won 14 or 15 races, including a stage at the Giro d'Italia and a stage here at the Tour de France. Their biggest success is coming in their 3 years of existence, ever since the sponsor said, it's time for us to go. Things were just starting to click. But rightly so, from all the riders in that team, they say, yeah, it's disappointing that the team is ending, but we'd like to thank the sponsors for the 3 years that they've given us. Team Sky at the front, controlling the chase, and it is Luke Rowe who is doing the job early, followed then by Ian Stannard. Once again, Chris Froome is surrounded by Fortress Froome. And they're like moats and ramparts, making sure that none of the attacks can actually get to the king himself. King Chris reigning supreme in the Tour de France. But now, anyway, and he's looking very good. I haven't seen him put a foot wrong. It's the Church of St. Marie that they're just making their way past, but the peloton, no time to take a look across to their right and enjoy it. Through the town of Ducimé, which is a popular ski resort. It's also very popular for hiking. And the mountains in this region, some of the mountains in this region along the Swiss Alps as we border with France, reach to over 4,000 metres in altitude. The highest point in this section that we're going through today goes up to 4,274 metres. In the next couple of days, we'll go towards Mont Blanc, which is almost at 5,000 metres. The roads don't go over the top of those climbs, which I'm sure the sprinters who remain in the race are very grateful for. Domenico Pozzovivo, making his debut in the Tour de France, has also managed to infiltrate that breakaway. No great threats in terms of riders battling for the yellow jersey to try and challenge Chris Froome. Steph Clement is the best placed rider in 24th position at 36 minutes and 17 seconds down. So Team Sky, they don't need to chase that breakaway group. They just want to make sure things don't get out of control. So 9 minutes now, the advantage for the leading group of 11 riders. Steve Morabito is also up there for FDJ. And when we get onto the final climb today, you'll see more signs for Steve Morabito than any other rider. There he is in the white and blue colours, the white Nicks, just going through the picture. Swiss climbing sensation, Steve Morabito. Former teammate of Cadel Evans at BMC, and he played a crucial role in supporting Evans to win the Tour de France in 2011. And now he gets the chance to ride for himself, Morabito. He did get brought across to this team, as he's now in discussions with their sports director, Ivan Matteo, and collecting some food and drinks along the way. He did get brought across to this team to try and play the same role for Thibaut Pinot as what he played for Cadel Evans. But with Thibaut Pinot out of the race due to bronchitis, Morabito has got the green light. Vaucluse at 45 seconds. The next group further down the road that you can see at 1 minute and 25 seconds, we join them now. This is Ruben Platzer at the back of the group. Julien Alaphilippe is there wearing the red number from Edit Quickstep. Serge Pauls at the front, the white colours for Dimension Data. Rui Costa for Lamprey, the former world champion. And Alberto Lasada is in there for Katusha in the red colours, sitting in second position. And Ruben Platzer doing exactly what he did at the Giro d'Italia this year when he was riding in support of Esteban Chavez. On the final few mountain stages, he got himself in the early break, so he'd be alongside Chavez when it counted at the end of the stage. Today, he's doing that to look after Adam Yates. Well, this is interesting. Maybe Ruben Platzer doesn't have the legs to be able to play that role. He's losing contact with this group, and the old legs of the Spaniard starting to fade. Just drifting out the back. He's an incredibly strong climber for such a big man, Ruben Platzer. 191 centimetres, 76 kilograms. Much bigger than most of the men that we see at the front. Take Domenico Pozzovivo, for example, who just swings off from doing his turn of pace. A little over 156 centimetres tall. One of the shortest riders in the peloton. 5 kilometres to the top of the climb. Pantano is now forcing the tempo, along with Morabito. Very similar breakaway to what we saw on stage 17. Maika, Pantano, and Zakharin were the 3 strongest riders that day, and they're in this breakaway. Pozzovivo was also in the winning breakaway on that stage. Stage 15 that was, into Vaucluse. Stage 17 today. The snow-capped mountains of the Swiss Alps. managed to get himself into the breakaway, Steve Morabito, and it is a strong leading group of 11 riders. Domenico Pozzovivo has returned. Tenel Kengert sitting at the back for the Astana team. And these three, Lutsenko, Van Avermaet and Vaucluse, trying to bridge across. They're at 30 seconds, 1 kilometre to the top, as the green jersey wearers at the front of the peloton. And I'm joined by a man who's won that jersey 3 times, Robbie McEwen, the green jersey at the front. Peter Sagan, he's bringing a whole new meaning to the points classification. He is Mr. Everything.
He certainly is, and it's never a surprise anymore to see him in a breakaway in the mountains because he's done it so often over the last couple of years. It may not be a surprise, but it's always impressive.
Thomas Vaucluse, they want to bridge this gap or get near enough by the time they get to the top so they can join them on the descent.
They've been wanting to bridge that gap from the moment they took off about 70 kilometres ago and haven't been able to do it, and just shows you how hard the riders in front are prepared to work because they think we've got enough guys up here, we don't need any more competition. And a big part of the driving force has been Peter Sagan. He's led all the way up the climbs for Raphael Maker. And if Vaucluse and Van Avermaet don't get on over the top, they're going to have a lot of trouble getting on at all because Peter Sagan is sure to lead the descent as well. And we know what he's like downhill.
How many people can say, I caught Peter Sagan on a descent?
I'm not sure anyone's been able to say it yet.
That's what I thought. And you can see the Astana rider at the back here. This is Tenel Kengert. He's got a teammate chasing, which is Lutsenko. So he's not contributing to the pacemaking at this point. He's waiting for his teammate to come across. But they're out in front because they have a plan for later on in the hope that Fabio Aru can make an impact. He's currently in 10th position, and he said he's not happy with the situation.
Well, I'm not sure the teammates are going to be able to do much from there with a 10-minute lead, so that pretty much nullifies Astana having 2 riders in front because by the time Aru gets to these guys, if he does, they'll be going up a 10% plus gradient climb as Raphael Maker takes the points. Adds to his total, and I think Thomas de Gent can wave goodbye.
Thomas de Gent suggests by not getting in the breakaway, he might have tried, as we see Vaucluse sprinting, not for the points because there's no points on offer. He's sprinting, as you mentioned before, to get in contact before they start going downhill. And it's a long descent followed by a long valley road. And a little bit of an arm sling, practicing perhaps to ride the Madison at future World Championships. Van Avermaet of this group is going to be crucial on the way down.
He will be, in the body language of Van Avermaet, he looks like he's really on the limit. Got the shoulders rocking all over the place. This is Alaphilippe, Serge Pauls. And just sitting on the back of those two is Alberto Losada from the Katusha team. These three, they are chasing behind Van Avermaet, Vaucluse and Lutsenko, and they have even less chance of getting on to that Peter Sagan-led group.
When there was a stage of the Tour d'Avenir to this finish line in 2006, it was an individual time trial. Steph Clement, who's in the breakaway, he won the stage. The only other rider from the top 10 that day that is in the race is Serge Pauls, who's in this break trying to go across. So they've obviously got good memories of the area. Almost over the top, Julien Alaphilippe wearing the red number today after that big adventure off the front with Tony Martin. How impressed have you been with Julien Alaphilippe?
Well, he just doesn't have an off button, does he? All day yesterday with Tony Martin in the front and up the road again. But it's one thing to be able to get in the break day after day, but every time you do, you're using precious energy that you don't have to utilise the next day. And you see now, he's not able to keep up with the guys who are trying to go across. Van Avermaet, Vaucluse, he can't follow them. Any other day you would have thought Alaphilippe will follow those guys. He's a winner of the Tour of California. He's performed well in the mountains, but it really does start to eat into those reserves. And you just don't have the same amount of energy at your disposal when you go so often.
Which can draw us to a conversation about the riders battling for the top 5, the top 10, or the podium, in fact, and trying to challenge Chris Froome. Everybody's been asking, when do the attacks come? They've got to attack. But you've got to economise with your energy. Because if you look at Van Avermaet and Alaphilippe fresh, Julien Alaphilippe is a better climber than Greg Van Avermaet. We've seen how much energy that Philippe has spent. He hasn't been able to recuperate. So when you look back to that top 10, and a lot of people have been saying, when are they going to attack Chris Froome? They haven't wasted energy to this point. They can't afford to, because these 4 days are enormous.
And they're going to attack when they think the moment has come that they can take it all the way. It's no good going out on an audacious attack and then being like a car running out of fuel, stranded on the side of the road. The bunch comes back past and you've blown yourself up. So the riders, they know themselves very well from training, from using the power meters, going on their heart rates. But at this end of a Grand Tour, it's all about feeling. And someone needs to take the risk of running out of gas, losing everything they've got at the moment, a top 10 place or a top 5 place on GC. Risk, see that going out the window to try and move higher. A 4th or 5th place overall, yes, it's good. It's a good performance, but nobody's going to remember it except your family. Get out and have a go.
And Richie Porte is one of the names that comes up in this conversation. Richie Porte is in 7th position, 4 minutes and 27 seconds down. But his legs have shown that he's good enough for 3rd. He's good enough to be on the podium. It's just that puncher that he had on stage 2. He's made the point that the final 3 kilometres today seem to go forever. Therefore, I'm not expecting Richie to move until we're inside the last 3 Ks today.
Well, you've got to go at a point, like I said, that you know you can go all the way to the finish, full gas, not run out and start to give that time back. And I agree with Richie. This climb seems to go on forever, and I did it in the car. As I was driving up, both climbs, in fact, they're separated by a technical, steep, fast descent. It'll be over in no time, that descent. So it'll seem like one big climb today, but it's steep enough to really make the differences. There's no sitting on. There's going to be no slipstream on this climb. It's incredibly hot as well, 35 degrees. This will be a race of attrition. Even without guys attacking, there'll be guys getting dropped, and he who can attack is the man who will move up a lot. And I reckon we can see Richie get himself up towards top 3, maybe top 4 by the end of today. The day before we rode into Bern and the riders looked forward to a rest day, everybody on the limit. Everybody was on the limit, but there was still a bit of margin there. Even Chris Froome threw out that fake attack, and Romain Bardet, he was the only one who really dared to do something, tried to get onto that descent by himself to try and steal some time. He can really throw it down a hill, but they caught him right before the top.
He is a joy to watch go downhill. The Movistar team, they wear the yellow helmets as the leaders of the team's classification. They've got the yellow numbers on as well. In 2nd place is Team Sky. But Sky won't be concerned about the team's classification because they've got the yellow that they really want. Gorka Izagirre crashed out today, broken collarbone, no longer here. Jesus Herrada, who won a stage at the recent Criterium de Dauphiné, is no longer here. That weakens Movistar in the mountains significantly. How do you think it will change the strategy for Valverde and Quintana?
I don't think it will weaken Movistar as a team in the mountains. If you're not defending yellow, I feel from this point on in the tour, it doesn't matter how many teammates you've got around you because it becomes so mountainous. Because in just a few kilometres, this race goes up and it's all mountains all the way to the second last day. So having teammates, there's not really much they can do for you uphill. The Team Sky riders, yes, they set the pace, control the peloton. Chris Froome can relax behind the Sky team and just follow along. But going uphill, there's not a slipstream you can sit in. There's not so much of a chase you can do. It's going to come down to who can follow and then who can attack on top of that.
Be handy, though, to have Wout Poels.
He can neutralise attacks for Chris Froome, but the thing is that Froome still has to do the pedalling. He has to put out the wattage to close the gap as well. That's the problem. It's not like sitting on the flat and sitting in the slipstream. If you have a guy like Poels closing the gap, you have to at least be able to follow him. And if you blow up, teammate, schmee, mate.
Yeah, if you can't do the job, it doesn't matter how good your team is. Breakaway group of 11 with an advantage of almost 11 minutes. Domenico Pozzovivo from AG2R Le Mondial is just tagged onto the back. They had good news, Robbie, on the rest day. The sponsor has extended yet again. They've been in the peloton for a long time now, AG2R Le Mondial. They've confirmed that they'll be on board at the minimum to the end of 2020. Lutsenko and Van Avermaet charging down as Thomas Vaucluse, I wonder what face he's pulling at this point.
Eyes wide shut.
This is Lusada, Pals and Alaphilippe.
And for my money, these three are going a lot slower than the three in front of them. And doesn't look like the trio of Van Avermaet, etc., are making much ground on that front group. I'd like to get a shot of Peter Sagan right at the moment. I'm sure he's tucked down on top of that top tube. Raphael Maker right behind him. Sagan's task from now, one, will be to hold that gap for Raphael Maker, get him to the bottom of that climb that Maker can try and get more points and try and win the stage, and for Sagan to take the points of the intermediate sprint, and that'll be a successful day for Peter Sagan.
And he's already got himself in a position to do so. They're over the first two climbs, descend, valley road, intermediate sprint, 20 more points for Peter Sagan, and then it is almost all uphill the final 33 kilometres to the finish. There's just a short 5-7 kilometre descent there in the middle. Shane Archbold in his first Tour de France, Robbie, holding on to the back. He's ridden well.
It's going to be a pretty good day out as far as mountain stages go for Shane Archbold and all the other sprinters who traditionally struggle in the mountains and have the enemy of the time limit, get over those first Cat 3s, and then they get a free ride to the foot of the climb. Of course, they have to ride up it. It's going to be tough, but they should have no problem at all with the time limit today. But there is that little thing of the 11-minute gap to the front, and a guy like Raphael Maker, so they'll be starting 11 minutes behind, so that it shrinks the time gap effectively for them, so they're going to have to ride pretty hard still.
He's got some pedigree, Dan Martin, as we take in the scenery of Switzerland. It's been a wonderful 48 hours or so through Switzerland, up now into the Alps, and just enjoying the backdrop. Throughout the tour, particularly as we head down through the Loire, that sort of region, we talk a lot about the chateaus. But man-made items cannot compete with Mother Nature at her very best. And today, Robbie, she's showing off.
Oh, she is indeed. And this is Le Mont d'Or, Gold Mountain. And the scenery around, I was going to say this part of Switzerland, but any part of Switzerland. I drive along going towards the stage finishes, and I'm in awe. I've got out on the bike a couple of days as well. Just beautiful to ride. I stuck to the flatlands, riding around the lakes.
The lakes were wonderful. Had the opportunity on the rest day yesterday to go for a swim. You heard the wheels of the cars screeching through the corners. Van Avermaet and Lutsenko have made contact. Thomas Vaucluse is not quite there. Just briefly back to Dan Martin. He's got some pedigree. His uncle is Stephen Roche, who won the Tour de France in 1987. Stephen Roche, his sister, is the mother of Dan Martin. And Dan's father, Neil, was the British National Road Champion. So as a racehorse, he would have been expensive to buy. And Thomas Vaucluse is not a bad descender. But do you remember that moment in 2011 into Pinerolo, descending a really tricky descent, and he thought, I'm in yellow, Contador, the likes of Schleck and Cadel Evans, they can take time on me on the way up. I'll take a few risks on the way down. And he went off the road into somebody's driveway and almost picked himself up a cup of coffee.
He went off the road not once but twice on that descent. Full risk to hold the jersey that day, and he's taken the risks to get on and now onto that group. The question is, how much energy have those guys spent in the chase to join the breakaway in the front of the race? As we look at Le Lac de Langrin.
This was formed in 1960 as a result of a dam that was built here, but it is fed by the snow melting water, and also got some water pumped into it from Lake Geneva. You can go for a swim here, and there's two arches. We get a chance to take a look at one of them. One of them stands at 95 metres tall, the other one 123 metres tall. Another one of the beautiful lakes. And the water yesterday in the lake that I had the chance to go for a swim in was surprisingly warm. I jumped in nervously.
Were you so nervous that you made the water warm? Is that what you're saying, Matthew?
Not quite. Not quite.
beautifully fresh in those lakes. We also got in for a swim yesterday. I managed to get in a lap of the Biel de Sea, the Lake of Biel, 35, 37 kilometres around. Had a barbecue, a swim, and then I did another lap in the opposite direction. Fantastic rest day. Also, the quick step riders, they enjoyed a swim on their rest day. Did some bridge jumping in Bern into the flowing river. As soon as you jump in, you're 50 metres from the bridge you jumped off, and then swam to the bank and then went back to their bikes.
Looked fun. Van Avermaet in red. He's made contact. So too has Lutsenko and Thomas Vaucluse. They now make this a leading group of 14 riders. It's been a good race for Greg Van Avermaet, and for BMC. Well, Greg Van Avermaet, he can't do a lot to support Richie Porte once we get into the mountains, the last couple of climbs today. But it's good for their morale to have Greg Van Avermaet in the breakaway, surely.
It's good for the team to have a rider and have some representation in that breakaway. Greg Van Avermaet, he's also pretty much got one speed when he races, and that's flat out. If there's a race on, he'll race it. He finds it very hard to just sit back. Because also at this time gap now of 11.5 minutes, same goes for Van Avermaet as for the riders from Astana. Not much they can do for a teammate in this position, because if they get caught, when they get caught, it's going to be on the steepest part of this final climb, and their team leaders will go past them so quick it'll almost be a blur.
The group with Julian Alaphilippe is now drifting out at almost 2 minutes behind. Brice Filou has managed to get himself into the breakaway. He had fond memories when we went to Andorra. That's the only race he's won. A mountaintop finish, almost the Queen stage of that year's Tour de France, on debut, and he managed to win with his brother there to enjoy it with him.
Maybe all of their budget went towards paying their salaries. There was nothing left to get a hire car.
Well, the rest of the team, they came up here in the car and they were really smiling at lunch. They thought it was hilarious. The peloton moving along pretty quickly now as they go along the Valley Road. I'm sure that Luke Rowe and Ian Stannard will pick up the tempo, because that's the last part of the course where they can really help Chris Froome. And although they're not too worried about that breakaway group, they just don't want to let it go out to a silly sort of a margin.
And that thing that I was saying earlier about it won't matter as much having teammates in the mountains, unless, of course, you are the leader. And we've seen Team Sky on a number of occasions ride a little bit slower uphill at the pace set by Stannard and Rowe to keep them on board to ride in the valleys. That's where it's really important for a team leader, the guy leading the race, to have teammates to do that sort of work. But if you're a Quintana or a Richie Porte not leading the race, well, everybody's just sitting in the line along those valleys. It makes no difference to them, because once the race goes uphill, it starts to split and they're on their own, them against Chris Froome. That's the point I'm making.
Two riders from IM Cycling in the breakaway. One of them is Stef Clement, the Dutchman that rides for the Swiss team, and he knows these roads very well. He was here in 2006 riding the Tour de l'Avenir, which is the race of the future, the crystal ball towards the Tour de France, a race that Nairo Quintana has won in the past. So, given that he's won here before, we thought it best to catch up with Stef Clement before the stage got underway. Here he is, talking before the stage, and now he's in the breakaway.
It was an uphill time trial, and most of the time you take a normal bike. I did it in the morning with my teammate Mathieu Sprick, and then I decided to take the time trial bike, and in the end I win, I guess, with 4 seconds, so the winner is always right. I said last week that I will try every day, so I will again. Of course, the finish line today is I think 8 kilometers further up the hill than it was back in 2006. But we'll try and we'll see, but memories are forever, and today is, we'll see what it brings.
You know, it's going to be a long, tough climb when we hear it's 8 kilometres further up the road today than what it was in 2006. Race radio just talking about a crash, and it's Shane Archbold from Bora Argonne 18, who we was talking about earlier on about how well he's been surviving the climbs. That is going to make life so tough for a guy that's not a natural climber. Let's hope that Shane's okay. He can get back on, get through the day, survive inside the time delay. But Robbie, you're not the one on the ground, yet you're still grimacing. You know what it feels like.
it's such a horrible feeling when you go down at speed. And on the upside, he's already on his feet. That's a good thing. You want to see the rider up and about, but he looks like he's in terrible pain because that is a very fast part of the course on that descent. So hopefully Shane Archibald is able to jump back on and continue. He's a tough man, and it's going to take every bit of toughness to get back on and get through this stage. A shame to see that happen.
He is coffin nails tough, Shane Archibald. I've seen him crash on the track riding Omniums, pick himself back up and finish the race with skin just hanging off his body, but he presses on. Breakaway group once again. Greg Van Avermaet from BMC. Thomas Voeckler, the man who can never be accused of being two-faced. He's got around about 100. This is Jurasek from Lamprey. He looks fairly comfortable. Brice Filou from Fortuneo Vital Concepts. Domenico Pozzovivo. First time in the Tour de France, it's hard to believe. He's won mountain stages at the Giro d'Italia. Steph Clement just going through, the rider that we heard from before. Well, the peloton really is moving as they make their way down. And look, the vineyards, this is what I was talking about earlier on. It makes you a fraction thirsty for a crisp white wine as you drive through here. Well, Peter Sagan has got himself into the break. And he won the stage into Bern, where a lot of the Swiss wanted to pay homage to Fabian Cancellara. And Sagan told the story about his first Tour de France. And he was in the breakaway with Fabian Cancellara, who was wearing the yellow jersey at the time, having won the prologue in Liège. And when they were in the breakaway together, Peter Sagan said to Fabian Cancellara, "I want to beat you and win a stage of the Tour de France." He told him directly. And he thinks that at that time, Fabian Cancellara was a little bit angry with him. Who's this upstart? Now they've got a great relationship together. And Peter Sagan made it pretty clear he wanted to beat him because of his respect for him. And maybe he didn't get the finesse of the message quite right with his English, which is his third language. He speaks very well now, but was only just learning at that point.
Well, lots of shouts of encouragement there for Micah. He's become very popular, and well, there's a move there. There's an acceleration coming from the front, and that is Tony Galopin, Frenchman on Team Lotto, and there's no reaction at all there. He was at the front, he could feel the tempo, and he could feel the work that was happening, and he goes straight out on the attack. Galopin, well, if he wants to get himself something out of this stage, he needs to build up a big advantage before we start the final climb of the day, because Jarlinson Pantano is an extreme. There's another move now. This is the moment when they've started to say, okay, well, we've all been friends so far, and now's the moment when we really need to go out on the attack. That looked like Lutsenko made the move there, number 26 from Astana. He's got a teammate in the back, Tanel Kangat, and there's no response there. Well, you know, we're looking at 27 kilometres to go. Tony Galopin, he hasn't actually had a win since last year when he won a small criterium or an exhibition race in Calais. And before that, his last victory was way back in Paris-Nice in March 2015.
Roberto, it is Alexis Lutsenko who's coming across there at the moment, and Tony Galopin will welcome the extra help, I think, because it's still it's only 17 miles or 27 kilometres of racing left, but apart from the short descent to get onto the last climb, it's all uphill now. Well, you know, just look at this, Paul. These are beautiful structures. There's lots of these in Switzerland because it's such a hilly country, and they've managed to tame nature with these wonderful viaducts here.
Well, some serious engineering in this part of the world, whether it's the incredible viaducts we see or whether it's the tunnels. But the main field now, there you see, Phil, that little roundabout, that is the start of the climb. And in fact, I was hearing over race radio that Trek Segafredo and, of course, Movistar have come to the front to really lay it down. But look at that. The white jerseys of Trek Segafredo in the second row there, waiting to try and launch their man, Bauke Mollema, into a good position.
This is the way it had to be today. The two riders, Bauke Mollema for Trek and Nairo Quintana, they've got to come up here now. We should also look out for the white jersey as well of Adam Yates on the Orica Bike Exchange team. already riders slipping off the back of the race. This is just a long, steady slog over the plains of the vineyards, the Col de la Vaucluse. Then we get the descent. Then we'll turn to the right. I hope they turn to the right because they come down so quick to this right turn. And then they start the climb up. Well, they continue to descend for a little bit longer.
Well, yeah, the climb is not very, the descent is not very long, maybe 4 or 5 kilometers. And there's a very sharp turn to the right-hand side, and that's when the final climb of the day starts. I would say forget about clamps and things to get up the mountain today. Maybe the best thing would be to have a parachute on the back, because there's a certain amount of paragliding. These two riders are now starting to build up quite an advantage. They've got about 20 to 25 seconds, and there's been no response at all from any of the other riders. I get the feeling that Rafał Majka is biding his time, as he did on the other day when we went down to Vaucluse, and so too is Pantano. Pantano there moving up into 3rd position in the white jersey.
Well, there's Rui Costa, I think it is. And he is in trouble at the back of the peloton right now. A lot of this whole group has been detached here. Steve Cummings is here as well, the British rider. And I'm hearing that I think it's Samuel Dumoulin has been distanced there, not Tom. But I'm not sure, because they're not showing the distinction.
Well, this first part of the climb will be a sorting out process. In fact, you can already start to see just at the front of that line a small nucleus of riders forming. What you'll have is 10 or 15 riders at the back trying to hold on to position.
Well, in fact, that's John Degenkolb. All the sprinters in this group now, they've gone. They're done for the day. Just their job to get home now. They won't worry about the race that's still to come. These are the two leaders. Alexis Lutsenko is the rider at the back, former under-23 road race champion, and in front of him, as we still have 7.8 kilometers, nearly 5 miles to climb to the top of this goal. Tony Galopin, though, he could handle this.
Well, I think he needs to get himself a little bit of a start before he starts this final climb of the day, because this climb, I mean, it really is a beast. Driving up it this morning, it almost took your breath away. Number 8 there, just slipping away. That's big old Ian Stannard. His job done on the flat part of the stage. Also slipping away, Luke Rowe. He's one of the flat men, the important riders on the flat part of any stage for Team Sky. Now they're handing it over to Messieurs les Grimpeurs, as they say in French, the climbers on Team Sky.
Well, the lifting of the pace is basically done by a team at Movistar at the moment. There they are at the front and driving as well, as they continue to pile up the front. Winner Anaconda as we go up around the vineyards again. This really lifting the tempo now. It's come on the climb before the finish climb. That's what they have to do.
Indication today as to see just how that man there wearing number 11 is going. Has he been playing a poker game? Has he got the form? He's talked throughout the whole of the build-up to the Tour de France about these next 4 days.
Well, Astana, who really haven't got a leader right now, but they're keeping a lot of men up on that leaderboard, and Nibali said he doesn't want to win, but they need to lift Fabio Aru a little bit higher up.
Well, I think, Phil, anybody in this race who's been careful with their energy through the first 2 weeks of this race, they're going to benefit from these last 4 days in the Alps, because if you're feeling fresh, you could pull back 30 seconds to a minute every day over the next 4 days, and that could completely change the look of the overall classification.
Tanel Kangart coming back from the chase group there towards the peloton. He's been picked up. Flag of Wales on the corner there. And a change of jersey for Peter Sagan, because he's happy now just to ride home today. Well, consolidated in that green jersey.
It just gives you an idea of...
He's got to get his radio sorted out.
It just gives you an idea of how powerful this man can be. Let's not forget, Phil, he's riding up a first category climber, changing his attire. I would suggest that he's probably taken off his undervest, which he had on earlier on, because over the next part of this race, he's going to get very, very warm.
Happy days for Peter Sagan. There's the glacier running off the side of Mont Blanc there, and it's called, well, it was briefly called up, but I think it is actually the glacier that's outside our hotel window.
Well, this is the glacier of Argentière, which is just on the other side of Chamonix. You can just see it there. They're magnificent, these glaciers, and plenty of people. I was surprised and amazed at how many people came through Chamonix. A town of only 10,000 people gets 100,000 visitors a day.
Oh, it's a lovely place. It's nestling in the heart of the Alps here, and you're only a matter of 20 kilometers from the Swiss frontier as well. Lutsenko continues to try and pave a lonely trail. keeps looking up, hoping he'll see the summit, but there's more riders coming to join him.
Well, the rider on the front all of the time has never asked for any assistance at all is Steph Clement. That's him there, just sitting on the front of this group. Thomas Vogler in second position. Steve Morabito lives 30 kilometres away, Phil, from the race circuit today, so you could say that he's the regional of the stage. And Micah, in the white polka dot jersey there, he looked to be having a little bit of a difficult time in the early slopes, but very often in the early kilometres of a climb, he always seems to be in difficulty, and as we get further up the climb, he seems to recover and find his own rhythm.
Little more acceleration here. This is a fine piece of pedalling by Lee Howard here as he comes up behind. 20 kilometres to go as we see the riders coming up here. Let's check in with Jens Voigt. Jens.
As we can see, Steph Clement doing all the work in the front here, right there. He's doing it for his teammate, and he won a stage 3 days ago, so he is ready to repeat that win. So I believe he is doing everything he can to keep in control. There we see number 79. He's just sitting there waiting for his day, for his moment to attack. And I would be surprised if he is not looking good today and not trying to go for another stage win.
Well, we'll see. I mentioned Lee Howard there because I really meant his teammate, Steph Clement. Here comes Rafał Majka, seeing the sign.
I wonder if Thomas Vogler is going to try and out-sprint him as he did a couple of days ago. And
Vaucluse just annoys his riders. No, this time he won't. So Rafał Majka gets the points over the top of the forecast, 10 points I think it is, and he's won all the points available so far today. If he wins this stage, he gets a massive 50 points because when an all-category race ends the day, they double the points in the mountains. Now Alaphilippe coming back from the chase group he was in.
Now all of a sudden, I'm just trying to peek around the not any more Movistar riders doing the pacemaking. No, Vincenzo Nibali in earnest is doing the pacemaking, but we look down the line, there is number 11 just sitting around there. Peter Sagan, well, job done for him. He's got his 20 points out on the course. Vincenzo Nibali doing an excellent job here, but he's not riding for himself, not riding for his own account here. He's trying to nurse his young prodigy, Fabio Aru, to the front end of the race. But there's not very many riders left in this group when you look to the back. No. But I can still see the white jersey over on the left-hand side there of Adam Yates, and in front of him, that little bobbing style there, that's the Irish rider, Dan Martin.
Oh, this is Pozzovivo here. No, it's not. It's Vilmoraz who's coming off the back of the peloton as well from AG2R. Pierre Roland just in front from Cannondale Drapac. These riders' days are done. Emmanuel Buchmann hasn't really ridden so well this year. He came here to the Tour and as German champion. He's dropping back. There's only one rider with him now, Quintana, and that is Valverde. He's got no other helpers up there.
And Valverde has turned out to be an amazing ally over these last few days. The Olympic Games, but also trying to help Nairo Quintana do better than second position. Just on the back there with that red jersey, Alaphilippe. He's seen the ups and downs of the Tour de France, but at least he's got that red number on his back as the most aggressive rider from the other day when we went down into Bern.
I think he's got a Viti. I just caught a glimpse of his wingman, Emmanuel Viti, also there, but a little bit further down the line, I'm afraid. Stand by for the dizzy descent here as we race down to the foot of the final climb. Steph Clement knows these roads well.
Just having a look at the attack going forward there, Phil. This is Steph Clement on the back of the group, and I would not be surprised if that wasn't Jarlins and Pantano who made the move on the descent, and with the man who he beat to the finish in Culos just the other day, and that, of course, Rafał Majka.
Well, just gone to 15 kilometres to go, and it could be a case of deja vu for these two riders when we start the last climb.
So here we've got the riders who finished first and second on the stage into Culos, looking over his shoulder. Mike says, no, it's all up to you, mate, for the moment. I know how good you can sprint when it comes to the end of a race like this, and he's doing everything he can to stay in contact. But he has managed to get himself maximum points over the top of the climb, over the Col de Vaucluse. It was Maika, Vaucluse and Morabito. Vaucluse, normally himself an exceptionally good descender, he hasn't made the junction. These two riders now there is not too much. I've just noticed 3 kilometers to go to the start of the final climb, and it's just a shade inside of 11 kilometers of climbing up here to the heights in the Alps of 6,500 feet, just inside of 2,000 meters. Main field, well, they're an awful long way behind at 10 1/4 minutes. Very shortly, about 2 kilometers to go, they'll have that very sharp bend. This is Bryce Felloux just on the back. The other rider in there from AG2R, just trying to stay in contact there. That looks like it was Pozzovivo, just. Look at the speeds there. We get a chance here. 65 kilometers now, 75 kilometers now for the chasers, who are not much more than 300 meters behind.
Well, here we go, Paul, back on the road to Culoz. The same two riders holding off the peloton. I wouldn't bet against it either.
Well, the difference is, Phil, that was a downhill finish into the town of Culoz and a flat sprint over the final kilometre. Here, you have to get caught when you cross the finishing line, because the road continues to climb up to another 400 or 500 metres after the finishing line, so it is a serious uphill finish.
Peter Stettner here, just finding it a little bit rough at the moment. In front of him is Damiano Caruso on BMC. Dropping away from a very small main peloton now. Here it is. Let's go and have a look in there. Sat at the back now, ready. I'm a bit surprised it's Geraint Thomas. He looks like being the next to go off.
That's an indication he's not too comfortable there, but to just look how many riders are left for Team Sky. The only way, I think, to put Chris Froome into any difficulty is to try and isolate him on this final part of the climb. Further on, as you said, we've got 2 races going on today, the race for the victory. I just think that Jarlinson Pantano is a slightly better climber than Rafael Majka. Majka's done a great job so far. They're about a kilometre away from that right. Well, here it is. There's the right-hand bend.
Whoa, let's watch this. Oh, our cameras are cut away. Oh, now go.
The reason they cut away, Phil, was because Geraint Thomas has been left behind by that group, and now he's obviously paying for all of the work he's done in the early part of the event.
Well, he's got a long slog up to the finish today. The first two are around that corner, but they're now going downhill pretty quickly. Well, I did tell you about this case of being deja vu with those two riders out across these very Alps, and it was a very, very cheeky sprint win for Jarlinson Pantano. A big win it was, Paul, for his team IAM too. They needed that. They'd never won a stage of the Tour de France.
No, and they got that first victory under their belt, but it's a completely different finish. I remember this from driving up this morning. A beautiful entrance into that tunnel, which was completely decorated with bicycles painted up in red and white. And those are the colours, by the way, of this region of Switzerland.
Just gone past the banner, 10.4 kilometres to the summit of this last climb of the day. It's outside category. It is a rough one. I can tell you a little bit about it. It's the climb of the Emerson, 10.4 kilometres over 6,400 feet. The steepest part on the climb, Paul, is 15.6%.
It's horrible. It is an awful climb. HC, by the way, stands for hors category, which means outside categorization. 10 kilometres to go, and there is no respite from here to the finish line.
It starts a little, should we say, a little bit gently. It looks quite normal here. It's just an alpine pass, but wait, this is a toughie, and there's a lot of people here as well. Vincenzo Nibali also looking a bit concerned about the way that break is thinning out, the bunch is thinning out. The yellow jersey still has 3 riders with him. Quintana's trying to get on the back wheel of Chris Froome.
Well, Nibali obviously in a very good day. Chris Froome is being followed by Bauke Mollema, who is in 2nd place in the overall. And I wonder if he's looked back at history to remind himself of just what happened to him a couple of years ago when he was in a position like this, 2nd overall coming out of the rest day. Now that looks like the rider from Katusha, Zakharin, making the move in the red jersey.
Well, he's the rider that's up in the breakaway. and he doesn't know if he's going to the Olympic Games yet because of all the politics surrounding selection of athletes from Russia for the Rio Games. He's been selected by his country.
Steph Clement now, 72. He did a lot to lay the foundations for the attack for Jarlins and Pantano. Puts a lot of pressure onto the shoulders of his teammate. The next acceleration comes from the local rider there, because that's Steve Morabito in the red, white and blue jersey, FDJ, as I said, the number. Oh, Bryce Fellou was about to make the move there, which was a bit of a surprise.
Well, there he is, Bryce Fellou. He's never won a race since he conquered Arcalys a few years ago now. This breakaway has been completely spread eagle. Thomas Vaucluse had a long chase to join the breakaway. He got up there farthest, right into the distance. We start hairpinning shortly. There are 6 hairpin bends on the climb up to the finish line, and it finishes going uphill, by the way.
Yes, well, after about 4 kilometers of climbing, the easiest gradient is in the first part of the climb. It's around about 6 and 7%, but once you get to 4 kilometers into the climb, then it climbs up to the 9% gradients, and there's only one moment of respite at around about 4 kilometers to go when it gets as easy as 8.5%, but for the rest, it is a very difficult climb. And there's a gradient in the last kilometre of around about 12%, so it really does get quite infernal in the last part of the race. Still no moves in the yellow jersey group. They've just come inside of the 10-minute mark, as we still see and still wait for the moves to come from the... And now this is a little bit of an acceleration. Vincenzo Nibali says, right, now we're going to start to lift the pace. Fabio Aru comes across there, but Sky respond to that move quite easily. There they can see the... indication of the 10.5 kilometre point to the summit. Well, there is the Mont Blanc. We've been all the way around these Alps. It has been so clear over these last few days. It is the highest point in Europe. As you can see from there, it is exceptionally high, and it climbs up to, I think the summit of Mont Blanc is pretty close to 15 or 16,000 feet when you do the translation. That's 4,800 meters. You'd be grasping for oxygen up there, Phil.
Well, fortunately there's no road, so that's good for me. We're going up to 1,960 meters now, and it's the finish right on the top. It's the highest finishing line of the race this year. And these
are saying they've only got between 5 and 10 seconds advantage over the chasers. So yes, they have to collaborate. And I suppose the interesting thing is that they've been in a breakaway situation like this. And the strange thing is, and on that occasion, it was in fact Micah who put Jarlins and Pantano into difficulty on the climb. In fact, they've been caught there. Zakharin has come back from nowhere. 1:49 now, so 3 riders with another rider in pursuit, and that's Bryce Fellou of France.
Well, you know, Zakharin here has come back, and he's really throwing a message out to the Olympic Games. He's been selected by Russia, but he doesn't know if Russia's going to the Games yet. And he's got great form, that's for sure, and the course would suit him. Steph Clement, number 72 there. These boys are riding quite sensibly at the moment, because this climb still has 8 kilometers to go, and it gets steeper.
Well,
the finish of the stage, Fano et Mousson. We turn short of the French border, French-Swiss border, by about 2 kilometers. We're now returning back into the heart of Switzerland here.
Well, this is the main field. The yellow jersey group are now starting the final kilometers of the descent. Very shortly they'll take that right-hand bend, Phil, and start the final climb of the day. They're doing speeds here, as you can see, around about almost 80 kilometers an hour, 50 miles an hour. And obviously Fabio Aru has seen this as a day that is important for him to move up and improve on his 10th position in the overall standings. He will move up a place tonight at least, because TJ Van Garderen, the American from Team BMC, well, he's been left behind, and he's going to lose huge chunks of time on a climb like this.
21 riders left in the main chase peloton. A little bit of cramp creeping in there by the look of it. That rider is actually Mark Ellis, I think. He was at cramping up. He's still at the back of the yellow jersey group there.
Zubeldia, no stranger to finishing in the top positions in the Tour de France, but here he's just going to try and hang on for as long as possible because he realises how important it is for Bauke Mollema to have a teammate up alongside him, because when this race starts to split up, it's important to have a teammate there in case you have a mechanical problem or need somebody to pace you over, so just to get you back into the race.
The snows on the north side never melt completely throughout the summer.
So we're now looking at three leaders. Zakarin, the rider we're just looking at there in third position, rode across the gap. He was expected to be a top man in the Giro d'Italia, but a crash out of the Giro d'Italia forced him to change his plans for the Olympic Games. And so not very long after he had that nasty crash in the Giro d'Italia, he was on the rollers. He was getting himself ready to train back up for this race. The team put him into this race to try and use the Tour de France as preparation for the Olympic Games, which is now for all of the Russian athletes. But he needs preparation. Looking down in the valleys, I mean, it is quite magnificent today. We're right on the edge of the Haute-Savoie, which is mountains, the High Savoie. This is the Italian side, and it really is one of those magical days there as we look at these live pictures of the race. Attacks at the front.
He's gone with 6.5 kilometres and the steepest part of the climb. He has accelerated just like he came across to the leaders. There is a reaction, but it's not coming from Rafał Majka. He has no more in those legs with that acceleration. It is Jarlinson Pantano.
Well, Pantano already has a stage for the man who wears the polka dot jersey. Phil, he's not one of the great climbers. He's great when it comes to getting into breakaway situations like this, but he just cannot respond to these kind of vicious accelerations. The change in pace on a climb is so difficult to respond to, but one man did, the Colombian rider Jarlinson Pantano. I don't think Zakarin there, Phil, expected him to come back.
Zakarin's only won one race this year, but he's been very, very consistent. He was fifth in the one-day classic, Liège-Bastogne-Liège. He finished fourth in Romandy, which is in Switzerland by Geneva. He's not very far away from Geneva. And he was fourth in Paris-Nice, where he won a stage of that race. Now then, I wonder what language they're speaking as he tries to speak to the Colombian. Well, whatever was said, and I suspect they spoke in English to each other, it looks as though they've decided to run another acceleration. You know, he must have taken a look at the face of Pantano and thought, I'll try once more, and it's going to work for the moment.
Well, he's hit him very hard. Pantano now a bit losing metre by metre. He needs to get back into some form of rhythm with that. That was a very vicious acceleration coming from Zakarin.
Well, his only Grand Tour stage win ever was last year on the 11th day of the Tour of Italy, the Giro d'Italia. A man who does not know if he's going to the Olympic Games, but he has been selected. And they say the course suits him. I think we can see why now. It's very hilly. Zakarin totally committed. He's tried a number of moves this year in the Tour. None has worked out yet. The Basque flag is flying under the nose of Pantano. He's still an awful long way to go. He's made it very, very early, and there's room for Pantano to actually recover from this.
You can see written all over his face, Phil, the pain. He wants to win today. Maybe it's a bit more special for a Colombian to try and win today as well, because it's Colombian National Independence Day. And Nairo Quintana of Zakarin is going to be hard to pull back, while in the yellow jersey group, all of a sudden a race that's been dominated by Team Sky is being dominated by a different team. This is Vincenzo Nibali of Astana, not riding for himself, a former Tour de France winner, riding for his prodigy, and that of course is Fabio Aru, who's sitting right up there in third position in that line. Another interesting point was they didn't travel up here this morning. Many of them slept up here overnight to make sure that the job was done. Look at the face though here, Phil, on Jarlinson Pantano.
Now, is this a move here? Because
Valverde.
This is Valverde who's stretching the legs. He's come to the front. There'll be no move from Team Sky. It's up to the others to get the seconds back. They'll just let the pace slow down. They're not going to waste their energy today.
Well, actually, I just noticed now coming up alongside there, you can see a little bit of a gap starting to appear by Chris Froome. All of a sudden, his teammates might be ungluing him.
Watch Pantano here. Quintana, sorry, watch him. He must have seen that gap open. Why doesn't he attack? He can't.
Maybe he can't, and maybe he's waiting. It's a playing game at the moment, but towards the top of this climb, there will be some serious truths. I take my hat off, though, to the man over on the left-hand side there. He's one of the oldest men in the breakaway, Alejandro Valverde. Phil goes again.
Well, that's worth a try, because remember, the last week of the Tour de France last year was not... He lost half his lead in the last 2 days in the mountains. And
oh, Phil, look, all of a sudden, Froome again losing a little bit as they see it, and now dripping by.
Now's giving up the pacemaking. This is all on the effort from Alejandro Valverde here. Wout Poels is up behind him.
Roman Kreuziger cracks. That's Henao in number 2 on his back. And I just wonder if Chris Froome went and looked at the videos last night about the last time he came up here in the Criterium de Dauphiné back in 2014. He was dropped and left behind by Alberto Contador on that occasion, and he lost his overall lead in the race.
And he lost to Contador by just 20 seconds. And the way this Tour is going, those seconds will count. He's going to hang on, but if Quintana has got anything in those legs, he's got to go. He's got to gain, even if it's only 20 seconds. Well, he's right on the wheel of Froome.
Yeah, Wout Poels and Nieve are sharing turns at the front. Froome just keeps looking down that gangly, ungainly style of his, and you just can't read how his body's going to react. Well, this man is reacting to the crowds now at 2 kilometres to go, and having driven this part of the course, Phil, we know that the barriers will start in about 400 metres time.
Just around that corner, he's inside 2 kilometres from the finish. Concentrating, hurting, he knows he's under 2, the feeling must be great. And they're not going to counter the move, they're more concerned about the yellow jersey.
Well, I'll tell you what, Phil, Sky at the moment are nursing Chris Froome. Richie Porte is sitting there in 5th position there, right on the wheel of Nairo Quintana. Quintana comes up alongside Froome just to have a look into his eyes, maybe, just to see how he can, if he can read.
Well, I must confess that I really think now that Richie Porte might make a stab. Number 91 down there, he's watching riders go.
They don't need to panic on the attack of Dan Martin. Dan Martin is 9th overall, but he's lost himself more than 5 minutes. So, again, I would think that Chris Froome will be waiting to see if he's going to get any moves coming from the riders closer to him. Now, watch out.
Aru. He looked to me as though he was getting a bit twitchy there on the right-hand side.
But even Aru is quite a long way back. Aru is actually behind Dan Martin at the start of the day in 10th place overall. But you will see a move come from Chris Froome if there's an attack coming from Bauke Mollema.
Well, here comes the Irishman now, looking over his shoulder there. He's got a gap, but he's still a long way from the finish. He's a lot more than 1.5 kilometres, of course.
Froome, I just keep wondering, Phil, he just seems to be having a hard time holding on to... Alejandro Valverde's in difficulty there, as well as Tony Galopin, who was in the breakaway early on today in the red jersey. He's going backwards.
Well, it's going to become one-on-one now because Valverde's gone. Quintana can't do anything about Froome. Froome seems to be getting tired, but there's nobody can hit him. And Bauke Mollema, he's looking to profit by anybody else's mistakes. He's in the group, but he's done nothing. It's the white jersey in front of the white jersey.
Well, they've slowly clawed their way back now to the... Martin not showing any fear of the reputation of these men. This is the best Martin in the Tour de France, but currently he's going nowhere.
Sebastian Reidenbach slipping away off the back as well, and his name's on the wall just around the corner. 4 kilometres to go. This is for the chase, remember. The other boys will be looking for 1 kilometre to go. The other boy will be looking for 1 to go. Martin's made his move. He's been put back in his place. Quintana gives nothing away and frankly does nothing right now.
I'm just
23 and 24 years old, those 2 young riders getting practice in the Tour de France. One day either one of them might be in the position to win this amazing race. 1 kilometre to go.
And on Colombian Independence Day, going to take 2nd place to add to his victory into Culosa just the other day. It's going to be Jarlens and Pantana. What a brilliant ride by this man. I tell you what, Switzerland seems to smile on him because...
Look at the average speed, 25 miles an hour with those 2 climbs. That's unreal.
It's unbelievable as we see Pantana. He's still not got quite up to the finishing line, but I was just about to say it was in the Tour of Switzerland we first saw how well this young man was riding when he won a stage there and finished in 2nd place in the overall standings.
Oh, the cars have been sent away, what they call the deviation, so now You're on your own to take the glory of the day. Jarlinson Pantano, second for Colombia and for his professional team, IM Cycling, and they grab him before he falls. Now, I wonder if we haven't seen Mike on the climb at all. We haven't got enough cameras, but he should be next man up.
Yes,
is the big ride here, because any second will do for Richie Porte. He needs to continue. He may not know the demise of his teammate, the American TJ Van Garderen, who I think is going to lose big time tonight. Another man dropped is Jacqueline Rodriguez. A Tasmanian now trying to get a few seconds, always believing a second or third place in Paris is very real.
Well, Richie Porte knows that this is important days for him as well, to try and climb onto the podium and make good the 1 minute and 40 seconds he lost on the second day of this Tour de France, not on his own fault, because of a flat tyre at the wrong possible time. That little acceleration came from Nairo Quintana, but he couldn't move. Now all you can see is Chris Froome keeping a little bit of an eye on everything else, and Fabio Aru makes the next acceleration, looking for a few seconds here or there.
He's looking for a few seconds because Daniel Martin's just been dropped from that group, and Aru could climb over him in the 14 seconds.
They're also saying that the man in second place overall, Bauke Mollema, is in difficulty. Froome has just gone over the top though now.
Now here's how you collect seconds, but Quintana looks, at least he's going to hold on to him. This isn't the Chris Froome of the last few days of the Tour de France. He tried, it didn't happen. He'll be worried about the progress of Richie Porte. He'll try to limit it to just a few seconds.
Well, you know what, Richie Porte knows Chris Froome extremely well, but again, Froome is having to rely on his friend and on his teammate Vaucluse, who's come back there once again. Well, Richie Porte really does have the legs and does have the condition to handle a 3-week bike race like this, but all of a sudden Vaucluse is dragging back Chris Froome, and in fact now there's a little bit of dateline between Froome and Quintana. Froome has seen this and said, right, I'm off. Any time I can grab anywhere on any of my adversaries, I'll do it.
He just closes his eyes, grits his teeth and goes. And Vaucluse looks over to see the face of Quintana, saying, well, there's your yellow jersey, Nairo, it's up to you. And he's come right up to Richie Porte here. Porte is gaining a little bit of time. You could see him up to 6th overall tonight. Won't be closing down any time at all on Richie Froome, on Chris Froome rather. 1 kilometre to go for those two.
Bardet is a little bit in difficulty too, number 41. Adam Yates and Louis Meintjes in this group, but they're just coming up to the back wheel there of Nairo Quintana. Fabio Aru over on the right-hand side. These were the guys we expected to see the challenges come to Chris Froome from this afternoon, but they now are the riders on the back foot.
Well, Bardet needs to lose about 24 seconds to the man in red here to lose his place overall in the Tour for now. Froome again attacking no one, just following the wheels and keeping the tempo. It's hurting now. This isn't the smoothie Froome we saw in the Pyrenees.
500 metres to go, but let's not forget, Phil, tomorrow there's also a very important uphill time trial. As Quintana sees this, he realises he's in difficulty, he's losing time. In fact, that time was 800 metres to go. There's still a long way, around about 2 minutes to get to the finish line. Adam Yates is riding well in the white jersey, best young rider in this bike race there, number 209.
Adam Yates needs 59 seconds over Bauke Mollema, who has been dropped from this group, to reclaim his 2nd place overall in this race for Orica Bike Exchange. We've gone up again to Richie Porte here. He's kicked again. You wouldn't think the table are the best of friends. Chris stays in his house in Tasmania, but today it's different. This is the Tour de France.
Well, Froome has moved up onto the wheel of Porte, but look at the gap, look at the daylight now between them and everyone else. Nairo Quintana, Phil, tried once again to come across that gap, but he couldn't distance the other compatriot, the other adversaries in the group with him.
Porte is racing here to climb 1 place certainly, and maybe 2. I think it's a little impossible to climb 3, but he could be in the top 6 tonight.
Just look how much pain Fabio Aru is going through, number 21 there, just to stay on the line there, and Adam Yates accelerates. That's an amazing thing to see, because these riders are putting Nairo Quintana into difficulty.
He is racing to claim 2nd overall.
Bardet has gone straight over the top of that, the young rider from AG2R, but Adam Yates is still on his wheel, Louis Meintjes. These youngsters are putting Nairo Quintana, who's talked about the last week of the Tour for 3 months, into serious problems.
Richie Porte goes up towards the summit here. and he might well be climbing up 1 or 2 places. Bardet might be saving the day with that late attack. It'll all come out in the wash. As Port sees the finishing line, he looks over at Chris Froome. Don't think Chris is worried about beating Richie Port as long as he goes across the line in the same time, which he will. And they put distance again into Nairo Quintana. Personally, I find this a very, very sad sight because he's such a popular bike rider.
Well, we talked so much about this last week of the Tour de France, these 4 big days in the Alps, but Richie Port is the man who's going to use those days, Phil, to try and get what he's aiming for. He's looking for a podium position.
I think the white jersey of Yates is just at the top of our picture as they come up to the line and they grab hold of those 2 riders. A good attack up the line by Port. Here's Yates, remains the best young rider. There's a little bit to the leaders, but he might well find himself consolidating. He might even go over Bauke Mollema.
Yeah, Fabio Aru's the next rider in, Louis Meintjes, but the time, Phil, is what we're interested in. What is the time deficit of Nairo Quintana as he comes up to the line? He's going to lose himself, I guess, another 27 seconds, I made it there, on Chris Froome.
Well, that will open the gap up for Yates as Mollema comes up on the back wheel here.
And he's lost 38 seconds on the yellow jersey as well as Dan Martin starts to come in.
Well, he'll just about hold on to second place over Adam Yates with that.
Now coming up there is Sergio Henao. He's lost a bit of time. Let's not forget, tomorrow is an uphill individual time trial. That says Joaquim Rodriguez about to come up towards the line in the red jersey. Well, at least he can celebrate this evening because it's his teammate, by the way, who's got the victory on the stage. Oh, this is a difficult climb. The riders have had to come up this afternoon, and it's the first day of 4 in these alpine passes as we look down on the beckoning waters there. This man tried to do everything for his teammate, Nairo Quintana, Alejandro Valverde. He's lost a little bit of time a bit further up. That's Roman Kreuziger. He started the day well placed in the overall standings, in 11th place overall. Valverde, I wonder if he's laying the foundations here for an Olympic gold medal, because the Olympic Games road race is a very difficult circuit, and this man, not only is he good at long stage races like this, but he is also a very, very good one-day specialist, and that's what he's thinking about. That's what his mind is set upon here.
Well, there's winners and losers on every day of the Tour de France. Zach Riem was a personal winner getting the stage, but the battle was reenacted 7 minutes, almost 8 minutes behind. And Richie Port gaining time, but he's not gaining time enough yet to get on to the podium in Paris. The winner today, undoubtedly, Chris Froome, and he showed us the strength of having a great team around him.
Zakarin, a great ride today, and rightly so, saying that it wasn't a big surprise. He's shown his qualities in the past. When he crashed out of the Giro d'Italia, in fact, it was on stage 19 that he crashed out, so almost at the finish line. He was sitting in 5th position overall. And as Phil and Paul spoke about throughout the stage, he has been a former winner of the Tour of Romandy in Switzerland, a very mountainous race. He won a stage at Paris-Nice this year in a mountaintop finish, ahead of Richie Port, Geraint Thomas and Alberto Contador. So it's no great surprise to see Ilnur Zakarin win the stage. Here's the overall classification. It's Froome, Mollema, Yates, Quintana, Bardet, Port. It's then Alejandro Valverde in 7th position. Fabio Aru has moved from 10th to 8th. Dan Martin has held on to 9th position. And Louis Meintjes has moved from 12th into the top 10. An individual time trial is a true test on any course, but when it's in the heart of the Alps, the examination of who is the strongest is even further amplified. The stunning backdrop, it's going to play second fiddle today, as there is so much at stake in the race for a position on the podium in Paris. Stage 18, and it may only be short, but it's difficult. It's the individual time trial starting in Solange, making its way through to Megève. It's 17 kilometres, and most of it is uphill. The first part of the course includes the climb that was used in the World Championships in 1980, and it is the steepest portion of today's stage, with gradients of 10%. This is Nicolas Erdet, one of the earlier starters. He's already made his way across the finish line, and he has the quickest time so far. The winner of the King of the Mountains classification from the Tour of Spain a few years ago has been quiet so far, but came out with a point to prove. He's registered a time of 32 minutes and 37 seconds, and that's the benchmark for the others to try and beat in the race for stage honours. Second fastest is Alexis Goujar. It is then Perrochon in third position. This is Nelson Oliveira, the Portuguese national champion, who in the opening individual time trial, he finished in third position. Just a minute and 31 seconds slower than Tom Dumoulin, but just on 30 seconds slower than Chris Froome. So the for the King of the Mountains jersey, but he's 83 points behind. Today, Rafael Marca will be taking it easy to get in the break tomorrow. More points for the King of the Mountains. Tom Dumoulin, though, he's not taking it easy. Don't worry about 55 kilometres per hour. 70 plus. How about those apples? The fastest time for Tom Dumoulin.
There's only one rider left to finish this individual time trial today, and it's the man who wears the yellow jersey, Froome, getting into that strange position we saw him adopting to win a stage into Bagnères de Luchon in the Pyrenees, which seems like months ago right now, and he looks extremely comfortable on that machine of his as he clocks up to 1 kilometre to go, and at 29.41 I would think that this man is going to challenge that.
And 1 second for the last kilometre.
Well, that is just on 60 kilometres an hour he went through there. The average time of 20.6 miles an hour. Poor old Tom Dumoulin waited for an awful long time, but Chris Froome already knows that he's got the victory of the stage and extended his lead in the overall standings. Third place on the stage for Richie Porte. Well, fourth place, sorry, Fabio Aru in third, both at exactly the same time. Brilliant performance by Romain Bardet to get fifth there. Jon Isagir in seventh. Louis Meintjes, the South African, in ninth place, 1:08 back, but that will keep him well in the top 10 in the overall standings. And Nairo Quintana, I think, improving a little bit down towards the end to get himself up there too.
In the general classification, Mollema has held on to second position, but he's now out to 3 minutes and 52 seconds behind. Yates has held on to third. In fact, the top six have not changed. It's then Nairo Quintana, Romain Bardet, Richie Porte, Fabio Aru, Alejandro Valverde. Louis Meintjes has climbed up to ninth position, and Dan Martin has slipped to 10th.
The question of attacking when there's a man down. This has been a one-for-all race today, and Bardet has ridden it brilliantly. Mike is still in the mix here, despite that long breakaway. Still looking very cool at the back, number 37.
Well, Froome, you can never really tell there when you look at his number 6 got his hand up there. Wout Poels.
In our shot there too, Louis Meintjes.
When a rider puts his hand up like that, Phil, he's calling to the race referee to call the team car forward, and I'm pretty sure that's to try and favour the movement up through the convoy of Team Sky to try and get Chris Froome back to one of his original machines.
Exactly, because he's about to go onto the mountain on a strange bike here, that of number 9, Geraint Thomas.
Well, what a quick call, though, Phil, by Geraint Thomas, who was up alongside him. The first thing, you see, that's why you have to have a plan in a moment like this. You have to know exactly what you were going to do. And maybe for Team BMC, they never really had that plan. When Richie Porte had a similar, well, he had a flat tyre, but there was nobody to pass him a bike as they ran into the final few kilometres of stage number 2.
Porte is riding second red jersey at the front here now, and this was to be a test bed for Richie Porte today. But the man he would likely pass in the overall classification, because he trailed him by only 3 seconds. Bardet is off up the road here, trying to get on the podium in Paris. Weather and attacks. The yellow jersey in trouble here. His right side of his jersey is ripped to shreds. We're hearing... Did I hear 1:25 behind for Bauke Mollema? Here he is in our camera. He's now trying to get back. You don't deserve that sort of look when you've worked so hard, but Mollema's having to fight back, and he's only 7.5 kilometres from the top, slightly more. He crashed on that descent of the Côte de Domancy.
Well, he crashed once there, Phil. Then he was starting to take a few risks to try and get himself back into the yellow jersey group, and he crashed again. But also, Chris Froome went down on that same descent, and he very quickly received a bike from his teammate, Geraint Thomas. That is the machine that he's currently riding as we get closer to the finish. Still, there's a long way to go, Phil. A lot of climbing left to do, 7.3 kilometres. That's still almost 5 miles of climbing till we get to the finish.
Well, Bauke Mollema is out of the top 5 places in the Tour de France. He would slip to 6th at least if he doesn't close that gap at the moment. It would put Yates up into 2nd place, Quintana into 3rd, and Bardet, the rider we're watching now, into 4th. And it might even be that Bardet would go up into 3rd or 2nd if he continues like this. Boy, if French voices can pull you up a mountain now, it'll work for Romain Bardet.
Also starting to move up there, I notice Purito, Joaquim Rodriguez, Dan Martin moving to the front of that group. But this man, you have to feel a bit sorry for the man who has been sitting in 2nd place overall throughout the whole of this last week of the race, and he robbed maybe of a podium position because of first of all, a nasty climb, and then an almost exiting of the roads, trying to catch up.
Just got a real good shout from a Dutch encampment there, shouting Bauke, Bauke, to try and get him through on that corner. Is it going to be where Froome decides? Because they've opened a gap on Froome here, and Richie Porte, if he's down. Look at this, Quintana's closing the gap. That's not an attack, that's to go with the move. And that's what Quintana has done throughout this race. He's never attacked.
Well, Wout Poels there, Phil, just looked over his shoulder and he just waited for the yellow jersey. Let's not forget the yellow jersey is not riding his own personal machine. He's riding Geraint Thomas's machine that was passed across to him. Quintana, though, Phil, was very attentive. He saw the acceleration, he saw the gap.
The Frenchman who could be climbing to 2nd overall in the Tour de France tonight. A terrific attack by Romain Bardet, the face of Caruso here. He's trying to put Richie Porte into a point where he could try and attack, because he's not going to climb up much if he doesn't.
Well, Caruso, they have said, is one of the best helpers on BMC for Richie Porte here. He's turned out to, well, we've been through the Savoie region and we've been through Switzerland. He's turning out to be the Saint Bernard, the big dog that looks after people in the mountains, and that's certainly what Caruso has turned out to be. Barguil has now been dropped off the back of the group.
He might come back. He's pedaling quite smoothly, but he's been yo-yoing off the back for quite a while, actually. He might get back on that. Let's go up to the 2 leaders. This is Bauke Mollema here. He's got a good pacemaker now in Jolinson Pantano. He needed to meet somebody of this quality on the climb, but he's dropping away from it.
Well, I've got Bauke Mollema 1 minute and 15 seconds off the back of the yellow jersey group, and 1 3/4 minutes, Phil, off the back of the leaders on the road. Dan Martin's just gone over the top. I just noticed the black and blue jersey of Ethics Quickstep. He is in 10th place overall at the start of the day, and he's looking to try and move up. He's only 3 seconds behind Louis Meintjes in the overall standings.
And he might well get this, because we've also got at the front, Barguil's just gone. He's left, and he's left at 3.2 kilometres from the finish. Remember, the winner gets a 10-second added bonus to his time for the day, and that could consolidate his time. This is a great effort by the Frenchman.
Well, that, Phil, is because they're getting into the steepest part of the climb again. They're up to around about 9.5%. This is a very difficult climb. Wout Poels just looks over his shoulder. He will try and nurse Chris Froome up this climb if he can. Whoa, I thought that was going to be a move by Froome.
This is Porte. Porte looks across. Quintana's marking Porte. Quintana's after him immediately. And a reaction, though, from Sky, but they take a little time to get into the rhythm. They don't lift the pace too much. Up to 3 kilometres from the finish. Romain Bardet is out to make the gains that could put him on the podium in Paris.
Well, Richie Porte now sees this as an opportunity. Quintana also moving up to second position. The Sky Riders now, Phil, they're looking over their shoulders. They've got to nurse their leader. You have to remember, he's still got a good buffer over everybody else in the overall standings, while all of a sudden, Vaucluse comes up to the front there ahead of Sergio Henao.
Zacharine going through in the red jersey here, right alongside. Meintjes in that mauvish top to his jersey there. Rui Costa now split, as this is Dan Martin now gaining ground and climbing over Meintjes in the overall classification.
Well, it's a strange style of Dan Martin, a bouncing style that keeps the pedals going round quite rapidly. His distance behind Romain Bardet is not much more than about 30 seconds, so he too now can start to dream about a stage victory for Ireland.
And Adam Yates is in trouble, Adam Yates. And this is another gain today, possibly for Louis Meintjes, because he went inside 3 minutes yesterday after the time trial, because he beat Adam in the time trial. And also unhitching now is Michael Landa.
Well, unhitching a little bit further on as well is the yellow jersey, as now the reaction coming from Joachim Rodriguez to try and chase down Dan Martin.
And this is Bauke Mollema here. He's unhitched actually from Jarlinson Pantano. So the big effort has really hurt Bauke, and it's going to reflect in a big time loss tonight. But if Rodriguez goes forward here, and it certainly is Rodriguez, they've caught Martin. The effort to catch Martin also caught Chris Froome, but he's got back.
Impressive ride by the South African though, Phil, because Louis Meintjes has moved right onto the wheel of Rodriguez. And Fabio Aru, well, the man we expected to attack, he's scrambling to stay in contact with Chris Froome.
How this race changed over the last 50 kilometres today with the weather, I might add. And out the front has popped a Frenchman who's converting a 5th place overall to a possible 2nd place tonight. Terrific piece of riding. As we're watching now Chris Froome riding his teammate's bike, just hanging in with these boys. There's the situation at the start of the day was 3:52 back, 2nd place Mollema, 4:16 to Yates, 4:37 to Quintana, 4:57 to Bardet. Bardet's recuperated all of his time lost, except of course to the yellow jersey.
Well, Phil, as if to say I might have been down, but I'm certainly not out. Chris Froome in the yellow jersey comes up alongside his teammate Vaucluse there in the blue sky jersey on the right-hand side, saying it's okay, I'm all right. Let's show these guys that I've still got the power that's taken me to 1st place overall. Quintana over to the left-hand side in the Movistar jersey with his sunglasses into his helmet. But Adam Yates,
this is Yates trying to just... No, he's not panicking here. He's going to ride himself back on. He's come back up to them. They've all tried to get some time and tried to reach Bardet. They've all failed, but Porte is going to try once more. At 2 kilometres to go, he kicks again.
And look who's responded immediately onto the wheel of Richie Porte is Nairo Quintana. Quintana was waiting for this last week. He's talked about the last week, and Richie Porte knows today it's important for him. He's looking for 1:08 to try and climb up into 2nd place overall, 44 seconds if he can get onto the podium, and that's what he wants after these of these 2 days of racing.
Well, on the left-hand side, looks as though Fabio Aru there was just trying, as Yates is, well, the elastic stretched again. Louis Meintjes still up near the front of this group as Yates tries to get onto the back. These last few days are proving pretty hard. Aru has gone now. He's put in an attack. He's got to attack after all the work his teammates have done today. They did it for him. Now he's got to gain something out of this stage.
Well, that's what he wants. That's why his team, Astana, did so much work over the majority of today's stage to toughen it up for this final climb of the day. He wants the stage victory, but he's got an awful lot of time to try and pull back on the leader, Romain Bardet. He's looking for around about 43 seconds. Porte gets out of the saddle, Phil, just to try and nail back those final few meters, but brilliant riding by Louis Meintjes there from South Africa to sit there in 4th position. Froome, on the other hand, he's still on the defensive.
The Frenchman, Romain Bardet, is being drawn to this finishing line now by the crowd. No French victory yet in this year's Tour de France. Costa goes back towards the group. Aru is coming back to try and get to him, using him as a carrot. Yates is just about hanging on by the skin of his racing shorts.
Well, talk about courage. The rider who leads the best young rider competition, he's just yo-yoing on the back. He finds the courage every now and again to scramble back into contact. He wants to make sure, Phil, that he can stay on the podium in Paris. Yes, he'd like to win the best young rider competition, but he wants to be on the podium with all of the big names of the sport of professional cycling.
Well, the face of Da Costa says it all now. Aru is making a late dash for the line here. There's not a lot of time left. A few seconds is all he can hope for. This is Bardet at 1 kilometre to go.
Well, it's Purito Rodriguez now coming forward. On his wheel is Alejandro Valverde. Louis Menkes is right up there as well, and right on their wheel is Nairo Quintana.
And Louis Menkes here making more gains on Adam Yates in that white jersey competition. This has been his best day in the Tour de France as he heads up to the line, 23 seconds down, so they close right in on him.
Well, where is Chris Froome? Here he is, Phil. Let's not forget, he did have a big buffer at the start today. 3:52 over second place. The clock there, he's lost 37 seconds on the winner of the stage, so maybe 10 or 12 seconds on everyone else, but that is a reflection of bon courage.
A horrible day. Here's Port. He also lost time in the end. And Adam Yates at the back here losing time. He needs to lose 2:59 on Menkes, and he's not losing that. But Menkes continues to close in and climb up the overall. Well, amazing scenes at the finishing line. And Chris Froome, well, he thanked his teammates immediately. He came over that finishing line, and he's finished on a strange bike. It must have been his worst day in the Tour de France, that.
Well, we're now waiting for the man who started, as we see Romain Bardet in the celebrations for AG2R La Mondiale and for France. I just wonder where, Phil, Bauke Mollema is.
Well, we'll find out, but I think they came up too quick for the winner to go second overall.
Well, he was waiting for the information to come through to him well down the slopes here, and you wouldn't wish this on anybody really, not just one crash but multiple crashes for Bauke Mollema. Started the day second place in the overall standings. He is losing a huge chunk of time here. Well, at the moment I have him around about 2:09 behind the winner, but 1 minute and 34 seconds behind the yellow jersey, and the clock is still counting for Bauke Mollema. These 2 days, everybody talked about them. Everyone said after the rest day, the final few days of racing in the Tour de France were going to be spectacular. Well, if tomorrow, because we've got to do a very similar race route tomorrow to this one today, and you can still see on the left hand side there his shorts are ripped open from that crash, but today finally is a day that belongs to France. Well, it was Rodriguez got across the line there in second place, Valverde third, Louis Menkes of South Africa in fourth position at 22 seconds, and also right up there as well, Nairo Quintana fifth, Fabio Aru in sixth place.
This was in second spot at 23 seconds, then Valverde, and what a ride by the young South African Louis Menkes. Quintana showing what we've been accustomed to, almost a better ride today. He was in fifth. Aru, Martins and Piles, Wout Piles, what a ride by him, the ultimate teammate for Chris Froome. And Richie Porte, he has to concede that this was a day of disappointment for Richie Porte, but he had some bad luck against him. So too did others, and then the legs cracked in the final kilometre or so. Position Valverde into seventh, Louis Menkes up into eighth, Dan Martin in ninth position, and Mollema has gone from second to 10th. It's the final day of racing in the mountains, and with the drama of yesterday providing a hint as to what we can expect today, anything can still happen. The race for the podium is wide open, and as Chris Froome keeps on saying, it's not over until Paris. Stage 20, and it's the last big battle before Paris. It starts in Megève, it makes its way through to Morzine, 146.5 kilometres, and it's littered with climbs and barely any flat roads. The final climb is the last one of this year's tour. It's over the top of the Jeu Plum, and then they plummet down to the finish line. There'll be strength required and also courage. Hello and welcome to Megève, where the stage is getting underway. We're just a few minutes before the neutral start and they roll out. It's the 20th stage, and then it's on to Paris tomorrow, where there will be celebration for the yellow jersey, and will it be Chris Froome? Matthew Keenan with you, joined by Robbie McEwen. And Robbie, for Chris Froome, yesterday was just another reminder of the cliche. It's not over until Paris.
And Chris Froome has been the man who's repeated those words more than anybody in this Tour de France. Even when he got out to a 4-minute plus lead on second place, a lot of people were saying it's been run and won. Chris Froome is one of the ones that wouldn't accept that phrase, and yesterday turned out to be very true.
It did. We're going to pay a minute's silence now to mark our respects to the victims of the awful attack yesterday in Munich.
Ce qui s'est déroulé hier donc dans la localité de Munich en Allemagne. 1 minute de silence sur la ligne ici à Megève. Ladies and gentlemen, your attention please. We are going to mark 1 minute of silence and homage out of respect for the victims and all the families affected by the tragedy in the location of Munich, Germany yesterday. Ladies and gentlemen, 1 minute of silence.
Disappointed yesterday when Pierre Roland crashed. He thought if he had him with him, he might have been in business. Michael Matthews is there. Jesper Stuyven is at the back. Just trying to hold on at this point in his debut Tour de France. Another reaction coming, and this time it's courtesy of Astana and Cannondale Drapac. They want to be in the thick of it today.
Well, realistically, Matt, this is the last chance for guys to really get away and have a chance at a stage win from a big escape. Because once you get into Paris, we often see a few skirmishes, little groups off the front, but more often than not, they get caught as a big bunch sprint in Paris. It's only every sort of 10 years that they stay away. Might be due for another one. I think the last escape was 2005 that stayed away on the Champs-Élysées.
Alexander Vinokurov. Up the Vichot now trying to go across. One of the most famous ones, though, 22 years ago, Eddie Seigneur. It was a brilliant win. Really defied the sprinters. It is TJ Van Garderen with Warren Barguil. Nice pickup. The American, there's a group also on top of him. In fact, it's the peloton that's on top of him. But a nice sign of the character TJ Van Garderen after a disappointing few days to try and bounce back. And we can say the same for the Frenchman Warren Barguil. He's had a tough race. He was hoping for top 10 overall. He's in 18th position, but he was solid yesterday. And full of praise for his compatriot Romain Bardet, who won the stage.
These two really struggling to go try and get that gap over the peloton, being led by Lotto Soudal, who already have a rider up in the group in front. So they just want to shut this down and maybe not let the likes of Van Garderen go across, although I'm not sure why they'd be concerned so much with him. Here is the front of the race.
This is Vaucluse at the back for the NX Quickstep team. It is Calderman in the yellow colours, Chavanel in the black and yellow. It is Benedetti from the Bora Argon 18 team and Ede of Cofidis. Just 23 seconds and the peloton's not letting them slip up the road. Kilometres before they get to the bottom of the first climb, and it's pretty quick getting there. There's a little interruption with a small climb on the way.
And that's where I think we'll see the break of the day really form. We've got these five off the front at the moment with a 25-second lead over the peloton. No news yet or pictures of that group in between. There they are. Here's the pictures. So that group has made it across. 26 seconds now to the main group. This is shaping up to be the one. But they're going to really have to push over that little hill, which comes at about 8 7 kilometres into the race. So this is it now. They're on. Last chance to get across.
And there's one more trying to come across from Bora Argon 18. And a whole bunch of riders with teammates represented up the front who are trying to close things down. This is the last reaction with anybody trying to make it across.
And this is Jeffrey Soup, I think, from the Cofidis team.
Cyril Limois. We'll have a closer look next time through.
They're all growing beards at Cofidis this day. It makes it hard to pick them out.
Soup's got the full beard. He's not into 5 o'clock shadows. He's your 10 p.m. kind of guy.
Michael Matthews, 2 days in a in a row, making it into the breakaway.
Or has he? Because this looks like Sebastian Reichenbach from FDJ, who's been riding very well. Been climbing strongly, 14th position overall at 21 minutes down. Big reaction. Adam Hansen also amongst it in the red colours of Lotto Soudal. Robert Kichalowski is there once again from the Tinkoff team. He's been very active the last few days. Big reaction coming from the peloton. It's proving difficult to get away because, as you mentioned before, this is the last big battle. With the exception of the sprinters, will be thinking about saving some energy for tomorrow, but they're the only ones.
Everyone else under instruction to get up the road, go with the brakes, go with the attacks. And it's this little hill that we mentioned. It's the one that could shape the breakaway if someone can ride away out of this group and maintain. Still got a good gap, but still riders trying to come across it. Someone from Tinkoff there in the background, maybe Kichalowski again. Very active yesterday.
It was 22 seconds. Tony Galopin knows that it's going to take some work to get this group going. So he's adopted the Thomas de Gent strategy. On the front for 5 minutes, 500 watts. See what happens.
It's a moment where you've just really got to commit to it. Not think about saving energy right now, but actually making the break work. So just sit on the front, maintain that gap over this hill, and hope then that they sit. Now they're going to come towards that category 2, another little uphill before they hit the foot. So it's still another opportunity for riders to come across out of the peloton.
Katusha in the breakaway. Ilnar Zakarin. He's already managed to win a stage. On the hunt for number 2. The peloton has closed things down on them. This is Vaucluse at the front.
So that was a group,
big group,
trying to get across to the group of Galopin. So it looks like it's split over that little hill. The peloton has come back to a portion of the original break. And look at the length of the peloton now, stretched out completely.
Can hardly call it a peloton. It is small groups of splintered riders. And this is just the prelude. Look, yesterday's stage 146 kilometres, likewise today, once again proving that short mountain stages are the recipe for entertaining racing. The 200 kilometre stages, and we had a few of them early in this year's race, that length of the stage really dampened any enthusiasm to race hard. This is the future for the Tour de France, shorter stages when we're in the mountains.
I think, Matt, even on the flatter stages, go for shorter stages and try and put in a level of difficulty that still suits the sprinters, but they've got to work to get there, but also gives the attackers an opportunity. It's almost like building a stage like a handicap race. Give everyone a chance at winning the stage, but everyone an equal chance.
I like the theory.
It's just hard to find the right roads in some regions of France. Sometimes it's completely flat. It's not so much as a speed hump.
And the course for next year's Tour de France will be announced in late October. We'll never tire of images like this.
And I've just had a flashback, Matt. I remember riding this descent 10 years ago, and it's all just come flooding back to me. I was on my own at that point because it was much later in the stage.
I thought you looked like you'd broken out in a cold sweat.
It was one of the few good parts of the stage because it was downhill. And that year was also a finish in Morzine.
A bit like, to paraphrase John Cleese, 2006 Morzine, Floyd Landers. I said it once, I think I got away with it. Don't mention the wall. It was a dramatic day. And it turned out to be even more dramatic a week or so after the Tour de France finished. Wilco Kelderman is desperate to try and make that breakaway work, but there's so many others that want to be in the move. There's going to be no green light and free rein. To get the break to work today is going to take an enormous effort.
There's a lot of riders out there today, Matt, that are just thinking, leave it all out on the road, because there's no use in saving themselves for tomorrow into Paris. They know they're just going to finish the Tour, and the chance of them getting away on that stage are slim to absolutely less than zero. Today's the day. Get amongst it.
This is stunning. I'm not sure how they've managed to do that, but it is absolutely stunning. This is Michael Matthews in the breakaway. For those of you who are watching in Australia, and no doubt there'll be plenty in Canberra, Roman Sicard also trying to go across from the Direct Energy team. Galopin, though, he is the one, along with Kelderman, most determined to make this work.
Well, Galopin in the break yesterday, and the break didn't succeed. He was brought back, so he said try and try again. That's the mantra. As this is Ilnur Zakarin trying to come across, and this is the hill before the first climb, that Category 2. Thomas de Gent marking him. He's looking for the free ride to get across, where his teammate Galopin is driving the pace in the break.
He wants to get to Paris as quickly as he can, Ilnur Zakarin, so he can then go home and meet his daughter for the first time.
And he's obviously got the legs to pull off another stage win, just like he did to Finot Emerson a few days ago. But he knows it's probably going to have to be in the break, and he'll power on over the top of this and give it everything on the Category 2 to try and join that break.
Scanning our way, courtesy of the helicopter images across the top of Montchavin, which goes to 2,400 metres. Flick of the elbow, that's Ben Gestur, a Luxembourg rider for AG2R. Matthews, Benedetti, Costa, and Zakarin in the background. You can just see the red followed by de Gent. He's not looking to Thomas de Gent to work with him, and Thomas is just trying to hold on. Vincenzo Nibali, this is from back in the peloton. Astana, they've still got a plan and they've still got hopes for Fabio Aru.
You could be forgiven if you think you're watching a replay of yesterday's stage, because a similar situation. Break up the road and Astana start to ride immediately. Vincenzo Nibali, he's looking for a bit of redemption. They had the race under pressure yesterday, but Vincenzo himself crashed at the same moment as Chris Froome. But they're back to work, looking to make things hard, because they saw Fabio Aru was quite good yesterday. Just lost a few seconds right at the end. But they're thinking a hard race suits Fabio. So they're going to keep up the pace.
He said he's not satisfied. He wants a stage win, and he still dares to dream of something dramatic happening and going from 6th and up into the top 3. And he only needs less than 2 minutes. He needs 1 minute and 33 seconds to get himself a spot on the podium. Anything is still possible. Vakoc from edX Quickstep, Benedetti, Matthews, Goujar, and then it is Gestur. And Vincenzo Nibali, after his crash yesterday, the Italian press, they thought, well, perhaps that was Chris Froome's fault, because they did it almost in a tandem motion. He said it wasn't Chris Froome's fault. It was just so slippery. My front wheel went out, regardless of what happened with Chris Froome. In the race, it could be a record. The smallest ever was in around about 19 or thereabouts. There was 11 finishes. Can you imagine rolling into the finish line with a peloton of 11? It'd be like a junior club race. But it was a completely different event back then, and it was all about being a test of endurance with stages of 400 kilometres. Down through the valley where things are quick. And just trying to identify exactly the main peloton. This is it. This is what is left of the peloton. The yellow jersey with Chris Froome. Behind him, you can see the yellow helmets being worn by Movistar. They're the leaders of the team's classification. Looking for a BMC jersey in there, Robbie McEwen.
A bit hard to spot from that height. So a group has made its way across. There's been a split at the front of the peloton. It's forced all the favourites to follow. A few have gotten on. Vincenzo Nibali has joined the group, I think, at the back. Wait for confirmation there, but I do see an Astana jersey, and I thought I recognised the style of Nibali.
You know, it's an aggressive start to the race when you could make the argument that the breakaway is actually the peloton.
Well, I wonder what has happened there, because the whole peloton was getting onto the back and then suddenly a split with a group of favourites. Now the rest of the peloton returning.
There is Caruso on the right-hand side of the screen for BMC. So Richie Porte can't be too far away. Looking for the white colours of AG to Le Mondial with Romain Bardet. This is Warren Barguil once again trying to get across. He was one of the early riders to move. And now he starts to climb 6.6 kilometres to the top of this one. This is Dylan van Baarle at the front. He has an Australian connection. His cousins are the Chapmans, who race in the National Road Series in Australia.
And they're from Newcastle.
They are indeed.
Your father, Craig, back in the day, raced with him in the 90s.
Who is married to the father of Dylan van Baarle's sister. He's married the sister of Dylan van Baarle's father.
Now you're confusing me. Let's just say their mum is Dutch.
Their mum is Dutch.
And they're related.
So we're going with the Australian connection nonetheless, plus the Drapac connection with the Cannondale Drapac team. Now this is most definitely the peloton. And there is Richie Porte. He sits behind Domenico Pozzovivo. The white jersey of Adam Yates is also in there.
Matt, let's talk about Richie Porte. Yesterday, he was the man who really needed to go on the attack. He was the man who started that stage, having momentum, as we said, rode a great time trial. And we thought, everybody thought, even the other riders thought, Richie Porte is the one with the energy, with the strength left in this race to make an impact on GC. He crashed. He came back after quite a tough chase, got onto the climb and tried to attack and didn't seem to have it. I was talking to him last night and I guess in a way consoling him, saying, mate, bad luck, but at least you had a go. Maybe tomorrow you'll go better. He said, it would have been a lot easier if my wheel wasn't rubbing on the frame on the last climb. From that crash, it shifted his back wheel. He didn't dare stop anymore to try and readjust it. The chase was too frantic to get back on. Then there was the attacking and chasing on the final climb. He said, I just had to go with it, but it was rubbing the whole way up. I'll be better today, and I'll attack again.
Therefore, he has not lost hope. His back is against the wall, but he has not lost hope of reaching the podium. He needs 50 seconds on Nairo Quintana. Can he do it?
Well, if you can see people at home who don't know what a hand sling is, think of the Madison race on the velodrome, where you swap with your teammate, one rider in the race, the other circling the top of the track. They drop down, and then as the faster rider comes through, it's a relay changeover, and they grab the hand of their partner and they use the momentum to sling them back into the race. And that's what Adam Yates did with Ruben Platzer yesterday. And it's a no-no in road cycling.
And Bennett is there. Well done. He's at the back of that group. Pantano is in the move again in the white colours. Pierre Rolland yesterday. How fortunate was he with such a dramatic fall? He slipped so long and then off into the dirt. He was lucky he didn't hit a barrier or that motorbike that was just on the side of the road.
Yeah, sometimes it's not the speed of the crash that's important. It's how fast you get stopped. And in a way, it was lucky for Rolland. He slid off the road and onto the dirt and kept sliding for a bit. But he said himself, I was just completely stunned. And it took me a while to come to my senses and figure out I better get another bike and keep moving. And now he just says, I just want to get to Paris. But his morale's even better than that, because he was the first man to attack today, got caught, went again, and he's up there. It'd be nice to see Rolland, his aggressive attitude, his positive attitude, rewarded with a good result today. And Thomas de Kent, talking about aggressive attitude, he is saying, too many non-climbers in this group. I'm going to lure out the better climbers. Whoever's coming, you better get on.
Roman Kreuziger is in this group, along with Peter Sagan. There's Kreuziger, number 36 on the far side. He's 12th overall. He is now a threat to the top 10 in the general classification. Sky, they're not concerned about Roman Kreuziger, but they do want to contain things. Reichenbach at the rear of the group. He's in 14th position. He's 21 minutes down.
Just in front of him was Lee Howard, the boy from Geelong for the IM cycling team, getting his way through to the end of his first tour.
So it's a surprise to see Sebastian Reichenbach at the back of the main peloton.
Heavy crash yesterday, fell rather awkwardly on one of those descents, and he was one of the early crashes just after Roland crashed. The next one to go down was Reichenbach.
Pantano now responding to Thomas de Gent. He knows the quality of Thomas de Gent, and here comes Daniel Tekla-Hamanot, the Eritrean national champion, attacking out of the sky-led peloton.
And we just said, with that gap still quite small, it's an opportunity on the Category 2 for anyone who's missed the move to try and go across. Tekla-Hamanot, he's realised that. No Dimension Data teammates up in the break as far as I saw. So Tekla-Hamanot taking the responsibility to go and represent. As here we're at the back of the peloton. Reichenbach, Howard, Michael Albacini from Orica Bike Exchange.
Just in front of them, Marcel Kittel.
And Thomas de Gent is luring a few riders out of that break on this Cat 2 climb. The chase coming across.
That is how you make the race. The performance of Thomas de Gent every time in those big breakaways. To steer the rear of the group. Richesi is there from edX Quickstep. And this is a reaction from Brice Felu.
He's coming out of the peloton as well. Same as Daniel Tekla-Hamanot.
And no reaction coming from Sky. This is a sad sight to see Sebastian Reichenbach at the back of the race in this condition. You can see the knee is bandaged up. There's sprinters that are still in contact, and he's slipping backwards. Support for Marcel Kittel. Well, last Sunday on the 10th of July, in fact it was 2 Sundays ago now, they had the 24th edition of L'Etape du Tour, and the finish line was right here in Morzine. And they started in Megève, where the stage got underway today. They had 11,471 riders from 62 different countries. They covered 122 kilometres. The last climb of the day was the Col de Juplin, which they go over the top of on today's stage. And L'Etape du Tour, it's now going global. It's shifting out around the world. In September, there'll be an edition of L'Etape du Tour in Brazil. There'll be one in Great Britain in September, likewise in Mexico. And then in December, on the 3rd of December, there'll be a L'Etape du Tour in Australia. You can ski at any time of year, Robbie.
You can, and talking about those L'Etape du Tours and all those different places, if you can't wait till December, you'd like a warm-up, a bit of a training run, or you can't get to Mexico or Brazil or the UK, come and ride my Grand Fondo on the Gold Coast. September 25.
Don't invite Thomas de Gent, because it wouldn't be very sociable, because he just rides too hard. He doesn't like keeping company with anyone. When he was warming up on the home trainer this morning, you could see the wounds weeping through the white bandages that he had on. That is the smallest sign of a grimace we've seen from Pierre Rolland. He's been one of the unsung heroes of the race.
Well, he's a real trier, you've got to give him that. Almost crashing out yesterday, but determined to make it to Paris as Thomas de Gent comes over the top of the Category 2 climb of the Col de Aravis and takes the points. But that jersey already wrapped up by Rafael Maker.
Unassailable lead for Rafael Maker in the race for the King of the Mountains classification. De Gent is just securing 2nd place ahead of Hansen Pantano. Frank Schleck, number 65 in the black and white colours from Trek Segafredo.
Ilnur Zakarin, Peter Sagan, Rui Costa. Tony Galopin there from Lotto Soudal.
And everybody's still working really hard together. That was a solid tempo. When you saw the body language of Ilnur Zakarin, who's a very good climber, they were still moving. Strong time trialist Thomas de Gent. He finished in 6th position in the individual time trial a few days ago. And when you look at the quality of the riders in front of him, Dumoulin, Froome, Port, and also Aru, it was a good result, 6th place on that stage.
Thomas de Gent maybe not getting the result he desired over that Category 2 climb, trying to lure some stronger climbers out of that group and build a bigger gap. The rest content to just work together as a bigger group, try and build that advantage and rely on Sky just setting a tempo and letting them get away. Now out to just over 2 minutes with 125 kilometres remaining and low cloud hanging over the valley. And the riders will have just about everything crossed they can afford to while controlling their bikes, hoping that that rain's not going to fall on them, or at least not on the road.
They're in the lap of the gods, the weather gods for that. Team Sky still in control of this group. And as we made reference a moment ago to the individual time trial of a couple of days ago, let's just reflect on yesterday and the crash for Tom Dumoulin. He's got a clean fracture of the radius. The normal recovery is 40 days. The individual time trial at the Olympics is in 18 days. He has said he's still hopeful and he hopes to be in good shape and get there. Can he do it?
If it's a nice clean break, they operate straight away, everything goes smoothly, they put a plate on it. No reason why he can't be okay for Rio, but I doubt he'd be 100%. There's still your body trying to recover from the Tour de France and from the injury. And of course, it's going to limit how hard he can pull on the handlebars or support himself out of the saddle on certain parts of the course. And we've been told it's quite a technical, hilly course, which means you can't just sit there smoothly pedalling in the seat. But back to the race that's on here.
Luke Durbridge coming to the front, followed by Daryl Impey, then the white jersey of Adam Yates. He has not given up on the podium.
Rain spots on the camera on the motorbike, so the rain is coming down on the road, and that would explain why teams are bringing their leaders to the front. Try and be at the front, set the tempo yourself on the descent, one you're comfortable with, not in the bunch where someone else might slip and end your race for you. This is going to be a dangerous moment.
So 5 points for De Gent to add to his tail in the King of the Mountains classification. The chase is now on behind him. They're at 30 seconds. Gregory Rust is there. They've got 10 kilometres to hit the intermediate sprint, where Peter Sagan will pick up more points and he'll break his record for the most he's ever managed to accumulate in the battle for the green. He's 7 points away from his tally from last year. Sky with that 4 minute and 11 second buffer. That was, could you please get out of the way, courtesy of Sam Bennett. I'm not sure whether that needed any translation, Robbie.
I'm not sure that's the literal translation of what Benedetti just said to the motorbike. As we said before, sometimes the bikes can't take the corners as fast as the riders. Benedetti looming up on the back of the moto there in that hairpin.
Clear as day, that was.
None too happy.
When you are racing, I know for a certainty that you spend a lot of time looking at the weather forecasts, wind directions, rain, etc. How much time do you think the directors from Sky would have paid attention to that overnight and this morning? Because it's going to play a big part of the stage, because now where Thomas De Gent is, it is really tumbling down. How quickly it changes.
It changes extremely quickly in the mountains. You look at the radar, it runs a few minutes behind reality, but you can just see in this area around Morzine and just to the south, you see isolated showers. So this shouldn't last too long. But the important thing for the riders is it's happening now and they're on a downhill.
And I wonder how much Froome's nerve has been rattled after the crash yesterday.
A lot.
Richie Port as well. Balka Mollema, another one. There were lots of riders that crashed. Even Vincenzo Nibali.
You know what? Even the ones who didn't crash yesterday will be rattled.
It's dry for these guys.
Not for long.
Not for long indeed. And the communication will be coming back.
I'm waiting to see some hand waving, the signal coming from the front. Take it easy, slow down, let's be careful here, because Chris Froome will be thinking, I don't want a repeat of yesterday, please. And you see the rain now coming down, and look at the speed drop as they come in towards the corners.
Ian Stannard and Luke Rowe controlling it at the fronts.
It's almost walking pace around the corner, all very aware. Oh, Chris Froome, he's nervous. See that little twitch?
Saw it. And then the team lining up behind them, it is AG2R Le Mondial, who took it on yesterday on the way down in the rain. Bardet has been in equal portions criticised and praised for that tactic.
In one portion, praised by the French, all praise. The French loved it. They finally got their stage win, their first one in this Tour de France.
One of the nice moments coming out of that stage yesterday from AG to Le Mondial was hearing from Michael Charel, who was the one that started all the action on the way down. And he said that in the last 2 kilometres, when he was hearing that Bardet was going to win the stage and move to second, he rode with tears in his eyes. He's never won a race in his professional career, Michael Charel. He does everything to help somebody else win. That says a lot about his character and how important it was for him to support his team leader.
When you can play a role in a big win like that, and he was largely responsible for building the gap that Romain Bardet had at the bottom of that climb, that's a big moment for him. And Bardet himself said he was riding on emotion, looking into the people's eyes and using their emotion to help power him on the climb.
And Michael Charel, as we watch Chris Froome gingerly on this descent, he made a pretty quick assessment of his own abilities. He told Bardet, I can't help you on the climb. I don't have the legs to go with these other guys that are inside the top 10. I can help you, though, on the way down. Let's go. Rowe gave a good example of this from the Sky team, who's sitting up towards the front, just nursing the yellow jersey around these corners. He has said the race he dreams about winning is Paris-Roubaix. He went there as a 9-year-old to watch it for the first time. Last year, he came into the Velodrome with one other rider, so there was 2 of them, and they were racing for 9th position. And he thought, do we just enjoy this lap or do I race for 9th? And he said, I'm sprinting for 9th as if I'm sprinting for the win, because one day I want to sprint for the win and I want practice.
And there's only one way to practice a situation like that, and that's do it in race mode. And a lot of opportunities you're not going to get.
Cyril Gauthier and Pierre Roland, the 2 who were slightly ginger on the descent, but it's understandable that they've been distanced by Peter Sagan. Peter Sagan at the front, followed then by Matthews, Kelderman. It is Costa, Dylan van Baarle and Kreuziger.
Very interesting move by Kreuziger. This break will have to get a much bigger gap than this for him to really threaten the top 5. Kreuziger at the moment, 9 minutes and 45 down on GC.
He's 2 minutes away from the top 10. And he won a top 10.
It'll be a good result if he could crack the top 10.
And then what sort of a tour can you make an assessment of with Tinkoff? 3 stage wins, green jersey, polka dot jersey, and a rider in the top 10. Complete
Success, except they came here to win the Tour with Alberto Contador. But I think they're getting over that. And I wonder if Oleg Tinkoff has started to get closer to a decision about what he's going to do, because he had said after the first stage win of this man, Peter Sagan, if he wins 2 more stages, I'll continue as a sponsor. Then he won 2 more stages. And I heard Oleg had said, I'm thinking about it.
We look forward to hearing more. Sergio Henao is also in that front group, Colombian climber from Team Sky. And as for his position in the overall standings, he's 13th. So he's just 1 position behind Romain Kreuziger. But he's a long way in terms of time. It goes from 9 minutes and 45 out to 18 minutes and 51 seconds.
And there'll be very little concern to Team Sky about where he finishes overall. They'll have a plan for him out there. Just sit out there, sit tight. He'll sit at the back of this group. I'm not sure he'll even contribute. So come to the sprint.
500 metres to the sprint, and we've seen Thomas de Gent. He's contested the sprints. He's in 7th position in the points classification. Michael Matthews is 3rd. And Michael Matthews, he wants the maximum points. You get the sense, based on the way he contested the intermediate sprint yesterday. But do they pay respect to Peter Sagan? Thomas de Gent doesn't, because Thomas de Gent wants the prizes, and Michael Matthews, as Thomas looks the wrong way, Michael Matthews will be collecting 20 points in the race for the green jersey and consolidating 3rd, and Thomas de Gent isn't too pleased.
Well, you saw how that all played out just now as Peter Sagan crosses the line in 3rd place. Michael Matthews figured, well, Peter Sagan has an unassailable lead. It really doesn't matter if he takes no points here. He's not going to move up further than he is. He's already got it won. I just get a little bit closer. But Thomas de Gent came next to Sagan and sort of said, hey, do you mind if I just go and get the extra points? Because I can move up a little bit. You don't mind? Are you sure? Okay, good. Oh, Michael Matthews has already gone. Oh, I was going to beat him anyway in a sprint.
He's now moved himself from 7th to 6th.
So Sagan gave him the nod and the little wave. Go ahead. What do I need with more points?
He asked for permission, and Michael Matthews just took it.
What do they say? Easier to ask for forgiveness than to get permission.
It is. This is now Daniel Tecla-Hamanot, along with Warren Barguil and then Brian Coquard through the intermediate sprint point. Coquard having lost contact on the climb. This is a nice set of wheels to follow, but it'll be dropped on the next one.
I'd expect so, but those other two, Barguil and Tecla-Hamanot, looks to me like they are going to get across to that group. Good ride.
They could very well make it. 2 minutes and 40 seconds. And still an enormous group as Pierre Rolland and Cyril Gauthier have managed to make contact.
They were so ginger down that descent. Pierre Rolland trying at all costs to avoid the white lines. Cyril Gauthier even fishtailing out of one of the roundabouts at the bottom of the descent, just trying to hang in there. But Team Sky, they've let that break go by another 40-odd seconds since the moment that rain dropped. That 40 seconds came all on that short descent.
This is Mathieu Bodnar at the back of the peloton, who played a big role on the stage in Montpellier when he drove the split. This is Richesi and Vaucluse, followed then by Felu. They'll be caught pretty soon by the peloton, and then they'll be in survival mode. A Frenchman who's won one race, and that came 7 years ago. But he's still been trying in the mountains, hasn't quite got the legs to collect one this year. See the red colours off to the left-hand side with the Katusha riders, just sandwiched in amongst the men in the yellow of Lotto and El Jumbo. The shorter of those two, that is Joaquim Rodriguez. He made the point this morning, this is my last stage in the mountains of the Tour de France forever. It'd be an emotional moment. What was it like for you, your last stage of the Tour de France?
The last mountain stage was good riddance, but at the time, I actually didn't know I was riding my last Tour de France. It was 2010, my last one. I kept racing until halfway through 2012, but retired shortly before the Tour de France. Going into 2011, I didn't know if I'd be riding it or not, so it I didn't know during the last tour that was it. I was just happy to get through it. It was a sufferfest.
Vincenzo Nibali, Tony Galopin, Frank Schleck, Tom Jelter-Schlachter, Julien Alaphilippe, Bennett, Pantano, Gendebos. Marino is here for Movistar, Zacharin from Katusha, Guster from AG2R Le Mondial. Jakob Fuglsang is also in amongst it from the Astana team. This is a class breakaway off the front, but it is a very big group. I expect it to be broken up somewhat on the next climb. The Church of Notre Dame de l'Assomption. They just make their way past. They won't have time to read the clock. This church was first built back in 1146. At least that's when the construction of it started. And now they start the climb. It's an 11-kilometre climb with an average gradient of almost 6%. The Col de Colombière. Thomas de Gent is coming to the front. They're almost at the top of the climb. They're inside the last few hundred metres, and he wants more